House Republicans to vote on bill abolishing IRS, eliminating income tax. I know it's not going to happen, but it's just so funny. Apparently, it was part of the deal. They were telling Kevin McCarthy, if you want our votes, you have to let us vote to abolish the IRS. And he had to agree. I'm having a good time here. We got a bunch of crazy news. Republicans have stepped into Congress and they're going ham. An investigation into Joe Biden. They say they're going to be releasing footage from January 6th. We'll see if that actually happens. They're booting several Democrats off of their committees. And boy, are those Democrats pissed off. They're saying we're supposed to, put forward as the minority party our picks for these committees. Why is Kevin McCarthy kicking us off? And he says, because Nancy Pelosi played that game. Because she booted Marjorie Taylor Greene and Gosar. And if that's the Congress she wants, it's the Congress she gets. Now, a lot of this, as I mentioned in my earlier segment, it's all symbolic. They're not going to abolish the IRS, but one can dream, right? It would be just so funny. But ultimately, what ends up happening is they force the Democrats to vote in favor of the IRS. That's going to be a lot in the meme war. So we got to talk about all that. But before we do, my friends, head over to surfinginternetsafe.com and get Virtual Shield, a virtual private network sponsor in the show. Thank you so much, Virtual Shield. A virtual private network service helps keep you safe as you browse the internet. So it stops government hackers, random hackers. It stops your ISPs from tracking your data. Go to surfinginternetsafe.com and you will get, what do they got here? 78% off, I think they're doing this time. $8.33 per month. They say that their VPN service is compatible with all devices. It allows you to browse the web safely, securely, and anonymously using their global network of servers and private IPs. It lets you browse the web completely anonymously, so big-name ISPs and other third parties will not be able to monitor and sell your internet activity. Your traffic will be routed through their secure and encrypted servers, meaning it will bypass any restrictions or censorship or blocks on your internet. You get a fast, reliable, secure, and always available network completely free for 30 days for Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad, Android, or Chrome. You've got your personal, your family, your business plans available. Family plan gets you 15 devices. Business plan gets you as many employees as you need. And they'll completely encrypt your Wi-Fi as well. Even hide your IP address. So again, head over to Surfing Internet Safe, pick up Virtual Shield. They're our first sponsor. We're eternally grateful that they're helping support the show as long as they have been. And if you want to take your privacy seriously, surfinginternetsafe.com. But don't forget, head over to timcast.com, become a member, clicking that little join us button right there on the left, and you'll get access to exclusive, uncensored, members-only segments of this show. We're going to have one of those up for you tonight at around 11 p.m. And I want to say, the other thing you do by becoming a member is you support the cultural movement. We got a coffee shop in the works, a skate shop in the works, one big building, games, coffee, hangout, etc. We want to launch a ton of coffee shops around the country in this coming year, and it's going to be a task. And that means we've got to allocate resources towards doing it. With your support, we will be able to, outside of all the shows we're creating. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. This Saturday at DC's Freedom Plaza, I will go skate. I will be there. Come hang out and skate. No special event, no tents, no speakers, nothing. Just quite literally, I will be there skating, and I would like you to show up, and maybe we'll be able to say what's up. Maybe it'll get too crowded. I don't know for sure. But the point is, we're going to assert ourselves in these cultural spaces. So I hope to see you there. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's going to be dangerous, Tim. It's going to be dangerous. I'm like, okay, well, that may be the case, but these people can't tell me how I live my life. I'm going to go skate where I want to skate and do what I want to do, and I hope to see you there. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Tayler Hansen.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Who are you?
Tayler Hansen, as he said. I'm an independent journalist. I covered the 2020 Summer of Love riots, or mostly peaceful protests, one could say. I was there on January 6th. I documented the death of Ashley Babbitt and then named the shooter as Michael Byrd. And most notably, recently, I have been uncovering and going undercover in all ages or child-friendly drag shows.
Right on. Well, thanks for joining us. And we also have Phil Labonte returning.
What's up, everybody?
You just broke some eardrums.
You can do better than that. Come on. That was like a queef.
I tell you what, I appreciate that vote of confidence from you, Luke. I really do. Hi, everybody. I am Phil. I sing for a band called All That Remains. We are a heavy metal band, and we've been playing metal and screaming for a long time, and I am happy to be here tonight, and I'm going to be here a lot more.
That's right.
If that's cool to talk about now, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm going to be joining the Timcast crew. And so I'll be around. I'm not going to be here every night, but you're going to see my face a whole bunch, and I'll be loud, and it'll be fun.
Absolutely. And you're going to be here on Saturday, right?
I am going to be in D.C. on Saturday, too. So
we're going to grab an acoustic and just
play
go
some
hang out in the
guitar.
plaza and just jam out, sing some songs, skate. And anybody wants to come hang out, just come hang
say
out.
what's up.
Come say what's up. We got Luke.
You're coming. I'm going. More about that later. But anyway, today I decided to wear my bold and beautiful depiction of an FBI agent stomping out a domestic terrorist, Lady Liberty. Buy this shirt, please, so I can help fix my front door after I get raided by the FBI on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Because you guys do that, that's the best way to support me here while I am still here. Thank you again so much for having me.
All great news. I'm glad you're here, Phil. This is really cool, man. And we were talking earlier about at the whole Ashley Babbitt. We got to go into it on the show. Talk about your experience in the Capitol on the 6th. That was nuts.
Yeah,
but
lots of crazy
Let's
stuff.
roll forward and come back around into this.
Absolutely.
Serge, tell it to me.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm at Serge.com. I'm ready for the fun conversation we're going to have. Glad to see you back, Phil. Pleasure to meet you, Taylor. Let's get it started.
All right, here's the first story. From Fox News, House Republicans to vote on bill abolishing IRS, eliminating income tax. Vote on abolishing IRS, part of deal between Speaker McCarthy and the House Freedom Caucus. Fox News Digital has learned the House will be voting on a Georgia Republican Rep. Buddy Carter's reintroduced Fair Tax Act that aims to reel in the IRS and remove the national income tax, as well as other taxes, and replace them with a single consumption tax. The vote on the bill was made as part of the deal between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and members of the House Freedom Caucus, and was pushed forward in his quest for the gavel last week. Okay, full stop. The failures of the GOP in this midterm are the greatest gift to all of us. You know why? Kevin McCarthy thought he would not need to negotiate with the Freedom Caucus members because they were going to have a red wave so pronounced the 20 or so vote holdouts would have been completely irrelevant. And then because the GOP underperformed, he had to go crawling to members of the Freedom Caucus, as well as people like, it's like Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, and then say, okay, fine, what do you want? And now we get something as bold as abolishing the IRS. Vote on the House floor. It's not going to happen.
No.
The Senate will reject it. But I want y'all to understand, when the Democrats vote to support the IRS, when the Democrats, they've already voted to defend the 87,000 IRS agents, when you're having dinner with your family and your Aunt Edna is like, well, the Republicans, they're evil. And you'd be like, yeah, I hear you. But man, the Democrats voted to defend the IRS. Get your Democrat relatives to defend the IRS in front of everybody and see how well that goes.
The IRS is actually a good thing, Tim. Easily defendable.
No. I actually agree with you. Thank you so much for bringing this up. I mean, the IRS, they're pretty much like those little, gnomes, but instead of also like those little Christmas elves. But instead of leaving stuff, they just take stuff for themselves. And without them, who's going to finance the next Epstein Island, right? Who's going to make sure that the special interests get all their money? Who's going to make sure that corn, seed oils are subsidized, right? It has to be the IRS agents. They're very bold and beautiful, brave members of the government that, of course, are not working for a corrupted, hijacked government that, of course, is spending our money and wasting it on special interests. So, we got to protect the IRS, guys.
Personally, I love being rated for $600 transactions on Venmo. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, this is what's going to happen. You're going to get a letter in the mail, and it's going to say you owe $73. And you're going to be like, what do I owe $73 for? This is ridiculous. And they're going to have your list of transactions. They're going to say, well, we think that this transaction was income. And you're going to be like, that was me moving. Like, I moved money from my checking account to my Venmo. That's not new money. No, it looks like new money to us, so you owe $73. Good luck. You're going to call a lawyer? Lawyer's going to be like, for $1,000, I'll send a letter that will get that $73. You're going to be like...
Strongly worded letter.
That'll get the $73. They'll knock it down by about like 50%.
That's
so
right.
You have to pay like 38 or whatever.
I guess if you're rich and you're like, it's the thought that counts. It's the principle of things. But for the average person, you're going to be gutted. So we're getting a lot of this, I don't know, symbolic victories.
It's all symbolic, and it's all really lame. There is value in like the meme factor, I suppose, in like the culture war or for talking points, but there's no substance there. It's all just,
feels good.
It does feel good. It's fun. I mean, like I said, I love to meme. I like cyberbullying people in Washington as much as the next libertarian, But
It does feel good.
It does, but there's no there there. There's no substance.
I love it.
You know that the Senate's going to turn it down. It's not going to happen. But it's good to get the Democrats to say we like the IRS.
Yeah, I love hearing abolish the IRS, but don't tease me with a good time.
I love hearing
don't
without
tease
letting
and
me
not
finish.
deliver.
Without letting me finish here. Come on, guys. Seriously, this is not right.
You know what would
this
feel
is
a
not
lot
cool.
better is if they actually did something. But we know that the Uniparty can't have that.
Yes. So we have these symbolic gestures that amount to nothing.
They're cute.
Won't change anything, and of course they're patting themselves on the back. Look, guys, we did this. I mean, you're pathetic. Seriously, absolutely pathetic.
I don't want to shoot the process in the foot unnecessarily because it hasn't gone to the Senate yet, and it may get passed through the Senate. Even if it does, then could Biden veto it? I think Biden could veto
They
it.
passed the Inflation Reduction Act with which major support from the Republicans. You think they're going to pass a bill that's going to ban the IRS?
Well, they're supposed to.
I wish they should. They should at least get rid of all those tens of thousands of new agents that are going to be hounding poor people. And the latest reports that are coming out in 2022, the IRS overwhelmingly went after and targeted poor people more than they did people with significant amount of income. They're doing this in order to, of course, keep people in line as they literally print money out of thin air. This is such just a disrespectful slap in the face to anyone paying attention here, as our economy is being deliberately destroyed in order to push a great reset. We're here today, and there's no going back from this. We have this little symbolic gesture. It's nothing.
I do enjoy the optimism, though.
I'm kind of getting the feeling that Luke doesn't like the government.
Just a little.
Just a tiny bit.
Yeah, we were at Turning Point USA, and Luke, I think, was saying defund the IRS or abolish the IRS, and all these young Republicans were like, yeah! And now you see the Republican leadership in the House proposing that we do it. So, like,
Not the leadership. They didn't want to do this.
well, they got the leadership to do it. They got Kevin McCarthy to do it. So, they are supposed to represent the will of the people, regardless. And so maybe the will of the people is shifting, and people are listening to that.
I put a poll in the chat. Abolish the IRS. 4% said no.
Yeah, but the
I want to know who these 4% are.
Yeah.
the problem I've got
boy
is
bots.
I don't think
They're
you can
illiterate
fix-
people.
I don't think you can fix politics with politics. That's the problem I'm at.
The
I don't-
4% is the people that couldn't read the poll.
Yeah, they accidentally
hit
clicked the wrong one. Oh, shoot.
You know?
Look, it's shifting though. Now it went 3 or 4. So it's like as more votes come in, there's about 2,700. It's people are saying.
Yesterday they voted to defund the 87,000 agents, and then today they voted to completely abolish the entire program.
No, they're going to.
Okay.
So they voted to get rid of the 87,000 agents, and the Democrats all voted in favor of these agents. No, but that does matter. I mean, it's not going to go anywhere. The Senate's going to reject it. But seriously, that's going to be in every political ad in 2024. Every commercial is going to be like, Ro Khanna voted to support 87,000 new IRS agents to target your small bank account. It's every single one's going to say it.
No way. I think it's going to, I mean, we're too far away, especially when it comes to people's attention, especially when it comes to the upcoming election. There's no way they're going to remember this. I just don't see it personally myself. And, the Democrats wanting more government and more IRS agents. What a shocker.
Even if they do run ads, though, I mean, you have these people on the left right now. I mean, they're going to cheer for it anyways. They're going to say, okay, yeah. That's the virtuous thing to do. We should tax these people. We should tax the rich. That's what it's going to be.
We get to redistribute the wealth from people. That gets them hot and bothered when they hear that.
They're going to start saying, "Well, it's a very important service provided to maintain our government." I mean, we're not anarchists, are we?
Democracy.
How is Ukraine going to get their weapons?
Luke, did you hear that?
What?
Someone said we're not anarchists?
Yeah, of course. They're all statist commies, all of them people. Especially the people who believe in the Parks Department. Don't get me started on that. But seriously, Ukraine has to get their money, right?
Yeah.
Why do you dislike the Parks Department so
Because it
much?
pisses me off. The way that they run and operate is absolutely nonsensical. It's a park. It doesn't need bureaucracy. It doesn't need government. And for the government to intervene, especially in places like New York City, because I lived in New York City, I loved New York City, and then there came the Parks Department that literally started to arrest people, give people summonses, and put them in court because they dared to walk through a park at a certain time that the Parks Department didn't like.
Central Park?
That to me is absolutely insane, draconian, and just top tier communism. Don't get me started. My blood pressure is going to go up. Stop
You should police the parks because otherwise they're hubs for crime. Like at night, people.
What if-
lot of
Wait
rapes, a lot
until
of
you learn about
muggings.
poor neighborhoods, Ian.
And you all got to keep them clean too. The parks, and you got to pay people to go do that.
But how much funding do they really need?
I don't know. I wouldn't think a lot, but I could be wrong.
How did
you got
the
to
government
protect the fire.
function in like the year 1800? There's no income tax.
Yeah, they did fine, and there was a lot of prosperity.
Well, it was a
and
lot
there was, of course. What do you mean there was
A lot of killing of Native Americans in the 1800s. Like a lot of just.
But also before
manslaughter.
1913, right? Before the Federal Reserve was enacted, before there was the creature from Jekyll Island, before there was this larger kind of income tax levied against everyone else, how did the government run? Pretty well, on a limited basis, and private business and private enterprise was allowed to prosper, and it did. And the roads were built magically, and they were still there magically. It's not magic, it's of course common sense. Whenever you have the government taken away from people, you have them depriving them of any kind of prosperity, of any kind of liberty, of any kind of freedom. And if you think the government has a duty to redistribute wealth, you're an absolute lunatic who is obviously just facilitating the larger transfer of wealth of your money to, of course, the big banks, the big corporations that truly do call the shots at government, and the most powerful people are only enriched by more government.
Luke, that's racist.
I don't give a damn what it is. It's the truth, and I'm speaking my truths here because how else can you see it?
Well,
Right? Make a counter argument. Make a counter argument.
How long until they write an article saying Republicans' effort to abolish the IRS is rooted in white supremacy?
I guarantee it exists.
It'll be soon.
100% it exists because they probably wrote it about libertarians already.
It probably already, yeah, it's probably already there.
you just gave him a great headline idea. So next week, I would say.
Media matters. Get
think-
on it. Write that thing.
Now, I'm a person of color, so they can't make that argument.
No,
about
I
me.
personally, I'm transracial. You can be transgender. I'm
Actually,
transracial. So
I think I found the
actually
opposite.
can't.
How federal tax law hurts black Americans.
Thank you.
Which is probably
Yeah,
true.
so actually the IRS is racist.
yes.
The tax code's racial disparities. Well, we got to get rid of all that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
to counter your argument a little bit, Luke, is that I think a lot of the things like the power monopoly you're talking about could happen in the private sector as well. And so you need some form of government to protect the common man from mobs and mafias and things.
Ian,
Until you have another mafia make up to fight the mafias, you have less mafias.
Technically, yeah,
the
you
mafia
do.
was created and made as powerful as they are because of the prohibition, because of the banning of alcohol, which was a stupid idea, because the government going around and poisoning people just to prove a larger point here. This is what led mafias to be as powerful as they are. You look at a lot of the cartels; they wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the war on drugs. The biggest mafia of all, the government facilitating this larger kind of mafia growth.
also NASCAR.
Well, I think
Without prohibition, you don't get NASCAR.
what happens is
that's true.
This
that
government.
true?
That's actually true. The NASCAR got started because dudes were souping up their cars to get away from the cops when they were running shine.
Oh yeah.
So you don't get
That is
NASCAR.
based.
You don't get NASCAR.
So what you're saying is if there was no government,
There
we
wouldn't
have
be
no
NASCAR.
NASCAR?
If there wasn't government,
we gotta have government.
maybe the government is a good thing after all.
No, because there's still Indy, and NASCAR only turns left. It's the laziest racing. There's Indy 500 racing where they turn left and right. NASCAR's just left. I'm sorry, Mark. I know you love it, but it's just left turns. It's left turns and crashes. That's all anyone cares about.
I like Indy 500. That sounds fun.
Indy 500.
They turn right, you say.
They turn right and left.
Right and left. They
Right?
both.
Yeah, both.
Wow.
But the point I'm trying to make is that rather than just demonize, quote, the government, just acknowledge that our federal government's way too big. It's too influential in people's lives. It needs to be reduced in size. Not that there should never be any government ever, because I think some government is extremely valuable in protecting common people from corporations and things.
How dare you?
That's what police forces is like a local government.
All the big monopolies right now are as powerful as they are, abuse so much power and get away with so much. Big Pfizer, big agriculture, all those companies get away with it because of their connections
arguing
with
two different
government and
things.
manipulating with government.
Ian's saying like a fire department is good. He's not saying
No, he's
Pfizer's
saying
good.
the government needs to be there to keep the corporations
that's
in check.
small.
Right? But I'm saying the government is there to make the
But
corporations
hold on,
big
Luke,
and create monopolies.
You're arguing against the current iteration of government, which is massive power structures. Ian's basically saying there is some degree of government that's fine.
We fundamentally...
I
think that's accurate.
No, here's what I'm saying.
Fundamentally disagree.
Get rid of everything. We don't need the bureaucracy that supports big pharma and all that. We don't need police departments or fire departments that can be private, but we do need at least one thing, a parks department.
Yeah, we got to keep the parks
Stop
clean.
it.
Most important one, hands down.
Yeah, nothing else. The government literally just becomes a guy in a park being like, you can't come in.
Have you been talking to Mike Cernovich about it? He just had a revelation about how awesome the U.S. parks are.
No.
He's like, everyone should
The
be
U.S.
going to
parks are beautiful and they're awesome, yeah, and they should be preserved, obviously. But you could do that independently. You could do that privately. You don't need a parks department arresting people for walking in nature
Or camping.
or camping. That to me is one of the biggest ridiculous ideas that they could micromanage you being in nature.
Privatization of land and property and stuff like that does preserve property. If you want to save endangered species, the best thing you can do is have someone that has the resources get a bunch of them on their private land so no one can hunt them and they can take care of them. and then that will save the species. There's tons of species that have been saved throughout the whole world because of privatization. Same thing down in Africa. There's there's a lot of people that privatize the land for safaris and stuff, and people think, and I'm not sure if safari is the right word because it's not a hunt where it's just like sightseeing that they do, so they can see wild animals, and I probably used the wrong term.
Good.
But what it does is it preserves the land and it preserves the animals because there's a financial incentive to preserve the land and preserve the animals so people can see them. It's like there's a way to monetize things in a positive way. Like you can absolutely use the incentive of profit to have good results. That is one of the most obvious things living in modern society. It's so obvious that people don't see it. It's so prevalent that people don't see it. But privatization is generally a good thing. Now, it's not to say that there aren't problems or can't be problems, but privatization versus government, it's almost always better for privatization because at the very least you're not adding legal violence.
Yes, thank you.
Let's jump to this next segment.
And extortion.
Here we got this tweet from Rep. Eric Swalwell. He says, breaking. Rep. Byron Donalds admits on the readout that McCarthy is kicking me, Adam Schiff, and Ilhan off our committees purely out of vengeance.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure it's out of vengeance, not the fact that you slept with the Chinese spy and she married her brother, right? Yeah.
That's thankful.
Okay, fair point. But I'll accept vengeance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm here for it. It feels good.
Either one is fine with me, man. You're a piece of garbage.
It's entertaining to see him complain.
The amount of entitlement. It's our council, or it's our, what do they call it, committee.
Whatever.
No, dude, it's the American People's Committee.
Whatever prevents him from dropping nukes on Americans that don't turn in their AR-15s, I'm fine with.
Or having
Hey,
sex
guys.
with more Chinese spies.
Fang had to work really hard. Okay, this is the she really loses here more than anyone else here.
How did
Right?
this happen? Eric Swalwell's on the House Intelligence Committee, and he's dating a Chinese spy who's harvesting intelligence from him.
Fang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Is it confirmed that she was extracting info from the guy? Do you know?
I'm not entirely sure if it's confirmed. I mean, but he was dating and having sexual relations with a Chinese spy. So I can only imagine that he was telling her
and
some
Adam
things.
Schiff lied all the time of the intelligence they actually had.
Adam Schiff should be removed from office just because of the
Just because of his neck.
just because he was going maybe just because he was trying to get people banned from Twitter. He was sending emails to Twitter trying to infringe on people's First Amendment right.
He released a private citizen's phone records.
Yeah, disgusting, absolutely disgusting.
Creepy.
Well, he got a journalist actually suspended and permanently banned off of Twitter
Yeah.
as well. The guy that works for Real Clear Investigations, right?
Mm-hmm. It's unconscionable that politicians behave like that, and it's extremely disheartening that we're such a tribal society right now that we can't all say, okay, that's a violation of liberal principles, and you can't be in a position of power anymore. That should be something that all Americans say, but that's not happening anymore.
Yeah.
And-
The mistake is that they say Twitter's a private company. So if I walked into the Apple headquarters and I started screaming, they could kick me out because it's a private company.
No.
But it's a different kind of private structure in that it's a social network.
No, it's not, because Adam Schiff is as a representative of the government getting a hold of Twitter saying ban this person. That is prohibited by the First Amendment.
So could
the government cannot tell an intermediary to violate someone's rights.
But could they say, hey, Tim Cook at Apple, don't let Ian Crossland into the Apple headquarters? Could Adam Schiff do that? And then Tim Cook's like, okay, you can't.
No, because it's a violation of your rights.
But I don't have a right to go into the Apple headquarters.
They don't have the right to tell someone else to violate your right. You have the right to move. You have the right to engage in commerce. The rights that an individual has are infinite. You have the right to get up and leave. You have the right to go to the bathroom. These are all rights that you have. Because you're a free person. So if Tim Cook doesn't have a problem with you going into his business, and you don't have a problem, and the government says, Tim Cook, don't let that guy in your business, the government saying that applies significant pressure because it's the government. The government has the monopoly on violence. So if they say that to Tim Cook, and Tim Cook says, well, I want him to come in and buy stuff, but the government said I can't, so I can't let you in, Ian. That's the government using their influence on Tim Cook to violate your rights, and that is expressly prohibited. I don't know the court cases, but I know that the Supreme Court has found that the government cannot do those kind of things.
The government can't use the private sector as a means to suppress your rights. To violate
But do
your
I
rights.
have a right to go into the Apple headquarters? I don't think that's
If,
not like
if
a
Tim
right.
Cook doesn't want you to, or
You
if
do.
Tim,
You do have a right. If a building like the Apple Store, well, she's at Apple headquarters. If we'll use the Apple Store as an example. If it's open to the public, you do.
So like
They-
any private company, any little shop on Main Street.
anything anything that's a public accommodation that allows people to enter, you can enter, and they can give you a warning to leave. Then they can call the police. The police give you a warning. Then the police can remove you or arrest you. But if a corporation is running a public-facing, publicly available business, you have a right to enter that business.
Yeah, and if you
And
remember,
then they have a right to tell you to leave.
If you remember
But,
a couple
you know.
years ago, I was even saying these are not private companies. They're working, colluding together with government, working on the behests of government, implementing a lot of their policies that the government wants them to implement. And they parade themselves around like, look, we're a private entity, we're a private business, we can do what we want. No, your tax dollars are literally being used for FBI agents to sit on social media to say you cannot have speech here, you cannot express your opinion here. And also, when you look at the start of a lot of these companies, they started with connections not only to the government, but there was a lot of grants, there was a lot of incentives that allowed them to become as powerful as they are right now, where they have a sort of monopoly on the industry and they dominate everyone, where competitors can't even compete with them because of the unfair advantage the government gave them during the beginning of their start, which I think is important to note here, which also tells me this has nothing to do with any private entity here. This is a quasi-public one.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the Civil War.
That collapsed and has myocarditis.
If we're entering this period where in Congress they're doing a tit for tat vengeance, that Nancy Pelosi boots people off committees because she doesn't like them. So then McCarthy comes in and boots people off committees because he's like, okay, this is a game we're going to play. I mean, we're heading to a point where elections are determined by who can collect the most ballots possible, not who actually has the best ideas.
Yep.
Ballot harvest and get the biggest number and you're good to go. And power will be wielded exclusively by each side for their own benefit. I would expect the Republicans to do exactly this. I expect the Republicans to impeach Joe Biden. But of course, the Democrats started it, and of course, they're not going to stop. So if we're at this point and the bifurcation just keeps going, where do we end up?
The biggest split you've ever seen? I mean, I think we're already at the point where the country is divided like we've never seen before, but it's just going to keep going and keep going. But I've always said that the right, because the right's always been the party of defensive. So it's nice to actually, it's refreshing to see that they're actually taking the offensive at least somewhat nowadays. But I mean, it's like Saul Alinsky. The left literally operates off of rules for radicals. I mean, that's how they play. You blame others of what you're guilty of. I mean, the whole 9 yards. So now that the right is actually doing it, it's just going to keep going until something finally breaks. And this is where I will agree, eventual civil war or whatever you want to word it as.
Did you always think that?
No. I mean, over time, one of the reasons why I got into the industry was because I saw that the Republicans were just playing defensive over and over again. I was like, okay, we need to fix this. And I was an activist before a journalist, so I painted Baby Lives Matter murals outside of abortion clinics. Pissed a lot of people off, but it was like a spin-off of BLM, right? I was like, they're doing it, I'll do it, push back. And then, over time, as I became more radicalized or more rational is what I would say, it just kind of evolved my thought process, and now here we are.
I would agree that if it continues on the path that it's going without intercession, that we would see some sort of physical conflict.
I mean, we've already seen physical conflict. I mean,
you were right there when Ashley Babbitt got shot,
yeah,
right?
I mean, that's as physical as it gets. I mean, that was government-sanctioned murder. I mean, the government's going to murder people on national television over and over again, and nobody says a thing. I mean, there's no repercussions for it. They literally dropped all charges. They didn't actually investigate Michael Byrd after the shooting. I mean, they did a faux investigation and said, oh yeah, he's cleared. All the police violence that took place on January 6th is cleared. So it's like, how far can you continue to go? How much government-sanctioned murder, because that's what it was, can you actually tolerate until something finally breaks?
Did that change you watching her get shot?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think about it every single day, and I've been thankful to really get close with her family. Her family is like my family now. Aaron, Babbitt, Mickey, they're absolutely amazing people. It's not what the media says. Ashley Babbitt wasn't some disorganized terrorist that wanted to go and take down the government. She was actually trying to stop people within that room. She punched Zachary Lama in the face and pulled him backwards, and then she went through the window to try and stop this crowd. But you never hear about that.
Wow.
You also said that there was surveillance footage in the Capitol showing the incident that also can't be found.
Yep.
And then you
made a
also
public
you also
statement.
told us something about people being near her not being prosecuted as well. Can you get into any of this stuff?
Yeah, I can get into it all. So the people that actually breached the west side of the Capitol, none of of them have been prosecuted. I mean, the ones that actually they're on video throwing 2x4s through the window, breaking these, and then they hop in and then open the doors from the inside to allow everybody else in. There's one in particular that I can think of off the top of my head. He's wearing all red, has a red hat on, and they actually somehow ended up very conveniently in the room with Ashley Babbitt right as she was being shot, right around Ashley Babbitt as this took place. And they were on, just like Ray Epps, they were put on the FBI wanted list and then almost immediately taken off right after. But you never hear about any of them.
What's going on?
One could ask that, and they probably should, but it's inconvenient to the narrative. And even if you do ask, I mean, we've seen with what Ray Epps has accomplished. I mean, he's literally on video on January 5th multiple times telling people to go into the Capitol on multiple occasions, and then on January 6th doing the exact same thing. I mean, there's even a video of him holding a big Trump banner and actually pushing it into police alongside other people. But, he's Adam Kinzinger's and the committee's absolute darling, and they don't want to talk about him. They release the transcripts, and it literally says that, hey, I helped organize this, and he's on video doing so. But you're not allowed to talk about it, and if you do, you're labeled a conspiracy theorist.
You see there's transcripts of Ray Epps saying that he helped organize January 6th?
Yeah, I believe, I don't know which congressman that actually released it originally, but I mean, it's literally in the transcripts that he is talking, I believe it's to his son. I'm not 100% sure on it, but
I think
he organized it. I mean, he was one of the organizers.
He said he orchestrated it.
He is the person that I followed to the Capitol while Trump was speaking. We arrived at the Capitol. I followed Ray Epps' group. I thought it was suspicious. He basically started rallying people and saying, hey, 10 minutes, we're going to the Capitol. We're going to the Capitol. And I'm sitting there like, okay, this is really weird. Trump supporters going to the Capitol on Trump's very last speech of the year, his last speech of his presidency, the Save America speech, is suspicious. And, I followed them. Then the first barrier goes down. The second barrier goes down, which that's the famous video of Ray Epps, whispering into Ryan Samsel's ear, and then the barrier goes down conveniently. So I was literally alongside Ray Epps. He is the one that led the first initial group on that west side and breached those two barriers. But then something that isn't talked about is after those first two barriers were breached, you had about 6 officers responsible for stopping hundreds of thousands of people. And there was the initial, I would call it the riot zone, or it was where they hold the inauguration every year. And the crowd of thousands of people just started to form. I mean, there's mothers, there's children, people from all walks of life. Everyone's just standing there. I was already deep in the crowd, and it was peaceful for about 20 to 30 minutes. And then a concussion grenade flies over my head and explodes into the crowd. And then it just started to erupt. So literally, it was a police riot, I would say.
Let me pull this tweet. I want to pull this tweet real quick. We've got this from Colin Rugg. He says, Matt Gaetz says Republicans will release 14,000 hours of January 6 tapes that were hidden by Democrats. Gaetz for the win once again. What could be on these tapes, and do you think it's going to happen?
I think it has a potential of happening, but I'm not super positive just because of everything that was supposed to come out hasn't come out. I actually talked to Gaetz in a Twitter space last night. I asked him about the same thing, and, he was very positive about it. He seemed, and basically assured that these were going to be released. I've seen a good majority of this footage that's been unreleased. I wish I could talk about it more, but I can't. But they've deleted footage. They've scrubbed through this. So, even what you're going to see if they do release this 14,000 hours of footage, they're not going to actually release all of it. They've deleted some of it. They've said in public statements that there was no video camera where in the hallway where Ashley Babbitt was shot. There was multiple video cameras. I saw them myself. Multiple congressmen can attest to actually seeing the video cameras. They're there right now outside the speaker's lobby. But they don't want to release the other angles of Ashley Babbitt being shot because it shows Michael Byrd cowardly hiding directly behind the barrier, not issuing a verbal warning, not doing anything, and then stepping forward and essentially executing Ashley Babbitt.
Wow. What happened? She climbed up on a piece of furniture or something to get through a window, and they just thought she was attacking them. And
so what happened is you had multiple officers standing, basically guarding those doors. And me and Ashley were the very first ones to get into that room. And I actually, I offered Officer Yetter, that was his name, a water bottle because he was covered in capsaicin powder. And, they said, no, it's fine. And Ashley Babbitt was literally joking with the same officers that moved out of the way of the barrier, minutes prior to her being shot. And that's the side of the story you never hear. But these cops, the CERT team, which Michael Byrd claims wasn't there, that's the reason why he shot Ashley Babbitt, they were there. They were walking up the stairs. And for those of people that don't know about the CERT team, it's basically the tactical team for the Capitol.
You can see it on video.
Yeah, you can see it on video. And that's where people see the thumbs up is because they didn't realize when Michael Byrd stepped forward and shot, they didn't realize if it was a friendly or not that had fired that shot because it was so unexpected. The CERT team was in the room with Babbitt and everyone else, and you actually, right before she is shot and killed and goes to the window, she grabs Zachary Alam with her right hand and punches him in the face, knocking his glasses off. And Zachary Alam was the one that was responsible for breaking all the barriers out. So she goes through the window, basically in order to try and stop the crowd. She was on camera and on audio basically yelling at these officers to do their job multiple times. And then they didn't do their job. They shifted over. CERT team comes to replace, and now the windows are completely exposed.
So they think, people are saying she was going to get up and turn around and yell at the crowd like, hey, cut it out kind of thing?
You got to think, though. I mean, she's 14-year Air Force veteran. She's been on multiple combat deployments. She knows what the rules of engagement are, right? And, is it easier to stop an angry crowd or at least a few angry people within the crowd when you're on the same side of the barrier with her or when you're on the opposite side of the barrier? And, logic says on the opposite side of the barrier, you can push people out the window, you can stand there, you can guard the window, or you can at least grab that window pane that's exposed and pull it back in.
Have they filed a wrongful death suit?
I'm not sure if it's been officially filed, but I do know something is in the process.
And it's also important to note that that officer was acting extremely reckless to shoot an unarmed woman in the neck or in the face.
It was in the left anterior shoulder.
With police officers behind her, and her not
Directly
being
in line
a
of
threat
fire.
or not being armed is absolutely something that should have been national headline news. There should have been some larger accountability here, but this officer was investigated and not even held accountable for his crimes. Meanwhile, this was the same officer that left a firearm in a public bathroom before.
Yeah, in 2018, he left his loaded Glock in a public bathroom, and a civilian found it in the Capitol. And then, his quote is actually hilarious. He was a lieutenant at the time. He said, "I will not be punished." He says, "I will be treated differently because of my rank as lieutenant." So, I mean, if he actually was deranked or actually punished with how he was supposed to be in a proper law enforcement scenario, he wouldn't have been there to shoot Ashley Babbitt. I mean, it would have been somebody that was leading the House security other than Michael Burt.
I'm just thinking about, you were there, right? And you're a reporter, you're covering what's going on. How close were you? I mean, were you in danger?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not from the direct round. I mean, I was closest to Michael Byrd out of anybody. I mean, that's where you get like the hoax of where, he's on video giving her a verbal warning, but he didn't give her a single verbal warning before he stepped forward and shot her. Most people didn't even realize that he was there. It was so loud in that room because you had a crowd surge coming in from behind and just overfilling. And I mean, like you had John Sullivan, which we all know about John Sullivan. He was right next to me. He has the angle of him actually shooting Ashley, and my angle is of Ashley falling out the window. And, he's screaming, hey, he's got a gun because he's the only one that can see Michael Burt. And so I remember I started screaming it, but you literally can't hear from me to you. And the distance between me and Ashley was about, from me and Serge, 10, 15 feet. And that's when, she went up. Nobody even realized that there was a gun there, and he stepped forward and executed her.
Wow.
Absolutely. Just, crazy. Insane.
Yeah, and I never, in all my years reporting, I covered the 2020 riots. I've seen some pretty crazy things. The feet on fire, Molotov clips, all of those kinds of things.
We were there.
In Portland, Night 100.
There was also that one during the DNC in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Mike Cernovich was down there too. Yeah, and we saw someone.
Fire.
Yeah, I've seen some really crazy things on the ground, but I've never seen, nothing will ever compare to what I experienced on January 6th. And of course, it still lives with me, seeing an innocent woman basically get murdered by the government in front of me. And then I remember that night really just, I was in shock. I remember stumbling out of the Capitol, not really understanding what took place. I went to the hotel. They basically did a little mini martial law. You couldn't even leave your hotel afterwards. Wow. And, I was lucky enough to stay with some of the InfoWars guys. They brought me in because my hotel was on the opposite side of the entire town, and you couldn't even walk outside. And I remember watching the TV, and, I had licensed my footage, but I didn't feel right about making an actual profit off it. I gave it to these news sources for like $2 a clip. And then you got John Sullivan selling it for $85,000, which is absolutely absurd. So, yeah, he got criminally charged, but then now he's perfectly fine living in Utah. They
dropped the charges or what?
I'm pretty sure they dropped the charges. I'm not 100% sure, but it's suspicious around him. The FBI reached out to me after the shooting, and the only thing they wanted to talk about, they didn't want to talk about literally anything else other than John Sullivan. So that kind of puts it into perspective. They wanted to talk about their little patsy toy. But the night of, I just watched on the news, they're using my footage and spinning a completely different story on what happened. They didn't talk about how Ashley was trying to de-escalate. Instead, she was called a violent terrorist and insurrectionist. So that's kind of when it set in for me of like, I'm in the middle of a cover-up.
As Ray Epps is on camera on January 5th saying, we're going to storm the Capitol, and on
multiple
January
times.
5th, and then people calling him a Fed. People were screaming, Fed. And then he did the same thing the next day.
Yep, he did the same thing multiple times and is on camera multiple times on the 6th, organizing people at different points saying we're going into the Capitol.
And this is a man that still has not been punished or even brought in for questioning. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, he was brought in for questioning by the January 6th committee, which is convenient because the committee, I literally begged them to tell my story. I wanted to tell my story to them. Reached out on multiple accounts. None of them wanted to talk to me. They refused, which now we know why. I mean, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see on multiple occasions. But I mean, then you got Ray Epps, and he is basically being paraded around as the darling of the day by Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, saying, oh no, he did nothing wrong, even though he is on video arguably doing more than almost everybody that's actually been prosecuted and is sitting in a cell right now.
That's crazy.
The Ray Epps thing is the most agreed. Like, it's the one where I hear about it. I'm like, oh, I hear this guy Ray Epps. And then you see the video of him and you hear his voice saying, let's go do this now. Like, and he's telling people, how is that guy not in some sort
incitement.
of detention at the moment?
Yeah,
or
it's incitement.
Like that's the...
He orchestrated it.
Yep. I mean, it's on text.
Ray Epps
He
did
literally helped orchestrate it.
Ray Epps did a whole lot more to get people riled up than Donald Trump did.
That's right.
Well, and
Donald
the
Trump's like,
first
we're going to be
breach-
peaceful. We're the party of law and order. Don't forget. Ray Epps is like, go do it.
Yep, and I built a timeline directly after the 6th, and literally the first breach that happened at the Capitol, it was 19 minutes. Trump had 19 minutes left in his speech, so you can't really say that Trump was the one that incited it. It was Ray Epps that literally formed that initial group that I followed to the Capitol.
All of the people that say that Trump incited, etc., that is all garbage. Like, you can say that Trump didn't do enough to quell it and calm them down, and at least I'll say I think that I might disagree, but at least that resembles the reality that I experienced. When people say he intended to do it, he was getting people riled up the day before, and et cetera, he did not go there and tell people to attack the Capitol. He was not telling people that they needed to go in, blah, 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 blah. He was definitely, you know, I mean, he wanted to be president still, and he was looking for any excuse to stay in office.
Can you blame him, though?
No, I mean, I get it. I get it. There was a lot of things that he had to be irritated and dissatisfied with about the election and leading up to it. I absolutely believe that. But, you know, it wasn't an insurrection at all.
Well, that's no one's been charged with insurrection.
That's why exactly. That's why people
How are you
not
going to
getting
overthrow
charged.
a government with no firearms?
There is no there, and there was
kumbaya.
There was never going to be a situation where Donald Trump actually walked away in charge. Like, that wasn't in the cards.
And how does it make sense is you're disrupting this proceeding, even if you somehow take over the Capitol. It's not how the U.S. government works, right? Like, you can take over a government building, you can squat there. Nothing is going to come from that. There's still, I mean, there's checks and balances, there's everything that is in place to make it not possible.
Yeah, it used to be. Used to be that if you took a building, that's where the paperwork was, and they didn't know who was signed up for what, then you ran the show, but now it's all digital.
Well, I've said this since day one is, you know, like I've reported on a lot of violence and a lot of things in my career, but you don't walk into one of the most secure buildings in the world unarmed unless you're allowed to. And they're on video. I mean, it's literally on video, cops saying, hey, I don't agree with you, but come on in.
Opening the door for him. We've seen several acquittals because of it.
Holding the door.
So what happened with Ashley Babbitt's mom?
Most recently,
Yeah.
So she was actually arrested for jaywalking, which is absolutely absurd.
Jaywalking?
Ever since, she actually had a dream come to her. I don't recall how long ago this was. I mean, because she was vehemently fighting for Ashley Babbitt and to get her daughter essentially justice in this situation. And she had a dream where her daughter came to her and said, there's not much you can do for me, but you can advocate for these J6 prisoners. And ever since then, she's flown to DC. She's been in DC ever since. And she is outside doing prayer vigils of the jail every single night. I mean, she's out there advocating for these people. And the Capitol Police have had a bone to pick with Mickey for a very long time. And I remember the last, not this most recent one where she was arrested, but the year before that, I was with her outside the jail. And we were the very last ones there when we were walking home. And, the Capitol Police and MPD are literally joking with her, and they're saying, hey, get in the back of our car. We'll take you where you need to go. And knowing full well that someone within their ranks murdered her daughter. I mean, so these people, I try not to group all of the Capitol Police because there are some good people within the Capitol Police Department but there's a lot of them that they openly joke about this. And then they targeted Ashley Babbitt's mother and arrested her for jaywalking, even though you had over 4 people right next to her doing the exact same thing. But then they conveniently only arrested her on January 6th.
In D.C., jaywalking in D.C.
On the anniversary of her daughter's death.
Jaywalking. Anarcho-tyranny. That's what they call it. You guys know that one?
Yeah. It's
basically the law is enforced only against their enemies.
Yeah.
That's where we're at.
She'd be a good guest.
We live in the
anybody
law.
that's advocating to get these people out of detention, unethical, unconstitutional detention. You have a right to not be detained for.
And her husband is Ashley's husband is absolutely amazing too. Aaron Babbitt. That would be someone to have on the show. He's a great guy.
It kind of feels like with a lot of the stories that we've gone through and stories like this, we call it a controlled demolition, right? Like the system is intentionally being destroyed in various ways.
Yep.
The government's been weaponized. I mean, even now, as we're sitting here laughing about the IRS being abolished, it's another component of dismantling the machine. I'm sure Luke doesn't care either way. He's probably excited for it. But in other ways, our culture is also being dismantled, and that's the dangerous part. We're not raising our kids properly. The kids are being abused, things like that. Without proper culture and without proper parenting, nothing else matters. I mean, it's going to be apocalyptic.
I mean, the culture, I would say, is majority lost. I mean, I'm in Texas. I'm a resident in Texas, and I'm covering child drag shows every single week. I mean, so these people are on video grooming children, and there's no repercussions for it. They're doing simulated sodomy in front of kids now.
Yeah, what's the American culture right now? Twerking? Seed oils?
Promoting sodomy, promoting obesity. I mean, you guys saw that picture on Twitter today where there's those 3 models and the one on the very right with the elephant trunks. You literally can't even see her shoes or with the remainder of them, but that's promoted as healthy.
Mixing cough syrup with alcohol. That's American culture right now.
Opiates, video games.
Yep.
Video games is a big part of it.
So one thing that I've been talking about quite a bit, and I'd love to talk with you, Tyler, about it, is this book, Genderqueer, because apparently nobody's read it.
It's insane.
Apparently nobody's read it. So I've reached out to a handful of people you'd think would have read it, prominent critics, and fair point, I didn't read it either. What we all knew in the book was that you've got these images that are graphic. And we were like, okay, kids shouldn't be around that. And I think most of us just assumed that the memoir stuff is immaterial. Like, if you're talking about your life, how you grew up, I don't care. Don't show the graphic stuff to kids. Then, as it turns out, actually, the book itself it's a horror story of child abuse. And so, to go back to what you're saying, you're in Texas, and there's child drag shows. The fact that it's even coming to Texas is alarming. Then it goes to Florida. I think people need to read this book. And I've been saying this all day because I really, really do mean it. And I want to make sure I highlight this. I can't show these images.
No, it'll get taken down.
No. But it's not even the images people know. For those that aren't familiar, in this book, there's graphic depictions of adult activities. But in the first page, let me see. Let's go to page number 2, 3, 4. Here we go. Okay, so actually page 1, 2. It's a little boy and girl peeing in the yard outside. And the first part of the story is how her parents brought her to a farm and had her and the neighbor boy just relieving themselves in the outside. Complete neglect. They talk about how they didn't have proper, utilities and things like that.
Yeah, there's that portion about where she gets pulled aside by her teacher in school because she smells so bad and has, I don't know if I can say it, but basically her period blood in the same pad over and over again, crumbling down her leg. But you're not allowed to talk about it. That's marketed in kids' libraries.
So and what people, as we're talking about this stuff, fail to understand is that when I started, so here's what happened. I was going through this because I was trying to show the Hodge twins the portion where the author of this book they're giving to children is attempting to ingest her own, genital fluids. And, in order to find that part, I'm like, I haven't actually read the book. I start reading it, and it's a story about how her mother abused her, had her wearing days old, not even days old. She just says, I'll read it. She says, I'd often wear the same pad for so long that dried blood turned to dark crumbles resembling coffee grounds. Where was her mom?
Yeah.
She's no wonder she hates herself. She was psychologically abused and traumatized by her mother.
And physically.
She's in school, and it's in the book. She's like, the counselor pulled me aside saying, you smell so bad, people are complaining. Did your mom not teach her how to take a bath? She didn't know how to shave her legs. You don't got to shave your legs, dude. I don't care. But at least the parents could explain to you why women shave their legs, why some don't. You can choose it. But she had no idea. She couldn't read until she was 12.
Is there a dad ever mentioned in the book?
Yeah, and the crazy thing is they're depicted as like these happy-go-lucky hippies, like hanging around and playing the guitar, when in reality, I wouldn't be surprised if they're drug addicts. I'm not kidding. Like, the idea that she couldn't read until she was 12, to me, is indicative of parents who are on drugs.
It's a form of child abuse.
Or even do basic necessities and take care of herself enough so she doesn't stink and gets pulled aside.
Yeah, like hygiene, dude.
That's the most basic thing to understand is proper hygiene.
Right.
The reason why I think it's so important to read through this stuff, as we're looking at like the morbid obesity with the shoes bulging, all of these things that people would say is like degeneracy or whatever. It's like, dude, it starts somewhere. It starts with kids being abused, and we see it over and over again. People, I'm not telling you to buy the book, but you know, you can read it online, and it's like, I want you to imagine this: a 12-year-old kid who can't read, walking around with crusted blood between their legs, smelling like feces, peeing in the yard, covered in hair. That's a wild child. And then this person struggles to socialize, becomes completely traumatized and hates themselves.
You wonder
it's
why.
No surprise this person is coming out and saying, I'm non-binary. I don't want to be like anybody. Because in the book, she talks about how she's made fun of, how she's embarrassed. And it's like, well, no crap. She was being it's like the parents may have just kicked her out in the yard and locked the door. That's what it sounds like they did. She goes to school and everyone's making fun of her because she smells like crap and she's got dried pads in her pants. Nightmarish, dude.
It's a common
Nightmarish
recurrence at
abuse.
these drag shows that I cover too. Is I would say 95 to 98% of the time, it's single obese mothers that are bringing their children to these shows. I mean, so they can't even take care of themselves, and that's what I see as a common reoccurrence. They're dressing their male boys up in tutus and dresses. I mean, and a lot of my footage, I've unveiled teachers bringing their children to this, talking about the grooming of their children like it's a totally okay and acceptable thing. I mean, the drag queens literally engage with these kids on stage, say sexual jokes, they do sexual things directly in front of them and actually involve the children in it. I mean, it's a form of psychological abuse that I've never seen before. I mean, I don't want to be covering this stuff, but ever since the Mr. Misters one really exploded in Pride Month, it's like they've tripled down this community. They've tripled down over and over again, and now I see multiple of them every single week.
The most revealing thing about this book to me is that graphic image in question that everybody talks about, the picture of adult activities, the main character, the author of this book, writes how it wasn't doing anything for her. So think about this. It's a person who's abused by her parents, neglected, filthy, uneducated, can't read, confused about who she's supposed to be or what life is. Like, yeah, when you leave a kid out in the wilderness and they grow up, they're not going to be able to properly function. She then tries to engage in, we'll just call it kink. And then she's like, hey, this actually isn't doing anything. She's clearly confused. She doesn't enjoy what they're telling her she should enjoy.
She's completely desensitized. And that's what they do to a lot of these children at these drag shows that I go to, is they desensitize kids to sexually explicit content and simulated sodomy at a young age. So then they grow up and they don't even understand what they're seeing. I mean, there was in the Mr. Misters one, the first one I ever covered, there was a child sitting at the bar. He had a Nintendo DS. He had a Rubik's Cube. He was completely uninterested in what was going on. And he had two moms with him. And the gay bartender who was serving drinks over his head literally asked this kid if he is gay. And he says no. And his mother butts in on behalf of him and says, no, he is gay, but he's just too embarrassed to talk about it.
You know what's really interesting? I want to mention this too. I'll say it again. You got a kid, can't read, dried blood, peeing in the yard, covered in hair, smelling like feces, and people are making fun of her. But then all of a sudden, she meets the Queer Straight Alliance, and they're like, "Thank you for being here. We love you." And she goes, yes, this is who I am.
Exactly.
No surprise.
The poor person that wrote that book has been absolutely psychologically brutalized their whole life. And then they're put in a position where if they engage with this activist group, which is what LGBT essentially is, especially when you're dealing with queer theory and stuff, they get the affirmations that they've been dying for.
They get the love.
They get love.
It's the confirmation that they need in their mind.
It is very typical cult behavior.
Yep.
Find someone that is vulnerable, that is dissatisfied, that is in a position that really needs help, and then tell them all the reason that you're unhappy is because of all of these people.
Right.
It is literally the same playbook that every manipulative person does, and governments do it. You look at what the Nazis said. You look at what the communists said. Blame the bourgeoisie. Blame the Jews. Blame the straight people. Blame the Christians. It's just the same thing.
And then think about this. Once again, a kid who's neglected in all these ways, smelling like crap. And then this group comes, and she explicitly talks about how she has crushes on boys too. Like this is like a normal little girl being abused. And then the QSA says, "We're so happy you're here." And then she's smiling, and they're like, "Yay, we love you." And by the way, those people who made you feel bad are the bad ones. Yep. They're the problem. And there you go. Now all that anger and resentment she felt, it's almost like a kind of sour grapes. I feel bad for her because it's like if she just had someone tell her, "Look, Girls shave their legs. It's a social custom. You don't have to do it, but all the other girls do. So they may make fun of you if you don't. She didn't even have that. She writes how she's like, I didn't even understand what was going on, why they were laughing at me. I couldn't even read. Crazy. Then they villainize those who are laughing at her for being unsocialized. And you know, that sucks too, to be completely honest.
She wrote this, I believe, because it was like a memoir. She calls it a memoir about her life and like expression of her experience. But like, I believe the kids in the book are under 18 that are experiencing the simulated sex acts. So if I wrote a comic strip of two 14-year-olds having sex, they would call that child. I mean, I think you're supposed to call it child porn.
I don't know if they're underage in that portion of the book.
They never say if it's underage or not, or if they indicate that they're underage.
At that point, I think she's in college and she's like working a job or something.
And also drawing of sexual images gets dicey about the legality because there's
artistic.
And there's a type of anime called lolicon that pushes the line apparently, like so, and there have been like court cases where they say because it's drawing, lolly's okay, which is creepy and gross, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. I don't know that that's illegal.
I mean, but a lot of these books that are being actually marketed in children's libraries do have what, you know, rational people would call child porn in them. I mean, it has depictions of naked little girls, naked little boys engaging in certain things. I mean, and exploring their body. And I understand, you know, maturation, right? Basic maturation. We all took it. But that's teaching about STDs, teaching about how to be safe. It's not teaching about how to actually engage in sex. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when they used to tell you to abstain from sex so you didn't, you know, contract these STDs or go through these terrible experiences. And now, I mean, books like this are being marketed to children on a daily basis in almost every single state of the country. She's thousands of schools.
She says she's 25 in that.
Oh, wow.
25 years old in that particular portion of the book.
Well, you're right about lolly porn. That's a big problem of contention on social media.
I do think they've banned it on Twitter, though.
Elon Musk has been like, none of this
and
stuff.
it's legal. It's legal in the United States because you can't prove that it's a kid, even though it looks like a kid. But
even though they're drawn just like children.
Yeah, intentionally, because it is, I think, I consider it a form of child porn.
That's if you ever go on like the MAP forums, right? Which we're going to call it what it is, the pedophile forums. I mean, they share lolly relentlessly amongst each other. Yeah. And it's because it's marketed towards a certain group of people and they know what they're marketing towards.
There's an interesting thing about this, too, is that when you read that portion, it's a very female perspective on sex. And it's funny because the you know, this individual's writing how they're queer and all that stuff, but I'm like, I think if like as a dude reading that, I'm like, yeah, that's a woman. Like I'm not trying to be a dick or anything. I'm like, the thing she's describing about. So you guys remember 50 Shades of Grey, and it was like women.
50 Shades of Grey.
Yep.
Of Grey. Women loved that book because women and men experience this stuff very differently, and men are very visual, and women are very much more imaginative, and that's basically how the book describes all of this stuff. Even to the point where she says she doesn't enjoy any of it.
I'm so glad you read it yesterday and got that perspective that it's a kid that was abused. That's such an important part of this.
I can't even begin, bro. I can't even begin. When I saw this, I can't even show it on camera.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Oh wow, indeed. Like you look at this and you're just like, this poor kid, man.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be
a real
surprised if parents
person that lived through that. That's is. It's something that I feel like people that have, you know, gotten outraged about that, they're outraged at the person for writing it. And it's like, it does suck that they wrote it, but remember, they're writing it because they were abused.
I don't think it sucks that they wrote it. I think the problem is they're giving it to kids.
Yep. That's the only problem with this.
I actually think this is really important because now you can see how the trauma and abuse leads to this person being unhappy and depressed and talking about how they dread things and how they fear things. And as adults, we need to understand what's causing these things to happen so we can help people. The problem is they're putting it in front of kids. That's messed up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is emotional manipulation. There's a reason a lot of Disney movies start off with either a parent character or a main character dying off in the beginning because that trauma is very powerful to ingrain a lot of different ideas. The CIA started to experiment with certain things, especially when they were starting to do MKUltra mind control tests on a lot of human beings, causing them trauma, fragmenting their personalities and brains, and then implementing a new one to see how far they could actually impact someone with the ideas that they wanted to put inside of them. So I think trauma is a key element to all of this that we have to really understand for how it's being used here, because you lay out the trauma And then you, of course, you have the problem. Then, of course, you have the solution. The solution is you got to join this group. This group's going to take you in. It's those people that are bad, those people that are responsible for all the bad things in this world. Don't take personal responsibility. Just join the cult. Everything will be fine. And those ideas are being ingrained into small children. When they're in school, they're being indoctrinated into the cult, into the statist, communist, larger ideology. And then they're kind of acting like the way that they are. Very emotionally triggered individuals that, of course, are being used and manipulated by the state that is using their trauma, their fear, their emotions for their own personal gain.
Yeah, trauma is the easiest way to, I would say, hypnotize people. I mean, because you can use that term.
Yeah.
I mean, whether it's, there are, trauma can have good responses. There are good trauma responses, but that's very rare. But when you're experiencing trauma from such a young age, like all these children that are being exposed to these shows and to these sexually explicit content on purpose, it's completely intentional because it fragments their mind, just like you said.
Let's talk about this this healthy at any size. Then we got this tweet from Natalie Denilition. Healthy at any size is a complete and total lie. Even her shoes are begging her to stop. Where are her knees? Stop celebrating this for F's sake. I feel really bad for this woman right here. This you can't. It's hard to see because of the way the crop happens. But let me see if we can. Show those feet. Jeez. Damn. Look, man, this person is suffering.
Well, and they're being put on a platform. Like it's a good thing.
And this imagine somebody was biting their own skin off and people were clapping for them as they did it. It's like, dude, we need to help these people. But we're coming to this point in our society where a large faction of people just say, who cares if it feels good? It's like, if it makes you happy, then why the hell is it so bad? Yeah, it's a horrible ethos. A lot of things make you happy. Drugs can make you happy, and they destroy your life. Yep. This person needed an intervention. This person needed someone to say, hey, cut the carbs, lower your salt intake, all that stuff, go for a walk. Instead, they said, be you. Strap these shoes to your feet and bind them, and then we'll put you on a magazine ad. This person's going to die young.
Yeah.
I looked up the definition of fat phobia on Boston Medical. It's absolutely amazing. They're like, fat phobia is deeply ingrained in systemic racism, white supremacy, and misogyny.
The typical buzzwords. Buzzword.
It's all garbage and lies. That is all just absolute horse
I have to wonder,
crap.
though, man. I have to wonder if there really is a depopulation agenda, then we win in the end. Like, the intention of the people who want there to be less people is that these people die instead of helping them. Because if it's true... And these powerful elites are like, there's too many people. Well, here's one way to get rid of them.
I am a human being. I am not a monster. I will never, ever approve of that.
But I mean, even the depopulation agenda that targets people like this that are morbidly obese, it's not like it just targets them and we're going to necessarily win in the end. Is because we're still intaking the seed oils, we're still intaking the bugs at this point. We're going to intake every single aspect of the depopulation agenda, so it's making us more unhealthy as we go too.
Yeah, Tim, there is a depopulation agenda, and we're not going to be the winners of it. There's a lot of these individuals that are literally and figuratively weighing down not only our health system but our entire society. And when we look at the projection, but when we look at, especially with how the population is going to crash, how it's already crashing, how fertility rates are going down, birth rates are going down dramatically, this is going to have a significant impact on society that's going to be very devastating, since there's going to be a lot of older people, not a lot of younger people. And that's going to create a lot of economic and social chaos that's going to be very difficult to navigate.
This is what I'm saying. This morbidly obese woman will die young. Cancer, heart attack, something. This morbid obesity is bad for you.
Heart disease.
When these people who are given the choice, they are told outright, you can be happy eating whatever garbage you want. There are other people who are like, nah, I'm going to take the personal responsibility and improve my health. Mm-hmm. The people who choose the personal responsibility, I lost 30 pounds, are going to live a lot longer.
I want to ask you a question. When you lost that 30 pounds, did you feel better in your body, right?
Man, like within a week of cutting out sugar, it felt like I had lightning surging through me.
When I've fluctuated weight before, and my heaviest was 177, right? And that was when I was puffy and I'd been eating a lot to put on weight to get muscle and stuff. And then over the course of like 6 months after, I cut down and I dropped like 10 pounds. Dropping 10 pounds of fat, I felt like I had a brand new body. And it was and I wasn't particularly heavy. You know, it's like I'm not a huge guy, but 175 was too heavy for me. Dropping 10 pounds, I felt great. I can't even imagine what it's like for someone that loses 50, 60 pounds. It's like you get a whole new body.
New skin suit.
It wasn't even about losing the weight. It was just cutting out the sugars, and all of a sudden everything was improving.
Yeah.
My blood pressure was really high. It dropped really quickly. It's just crazy. And so these are the choices you can make. My point ultimately is no one is forcing this person to stuff food into their mouths, right? And so what is this? What?
Oh, no, I'm just trying to.
Nobody's forcing people to live unhealthy lives, not to exercise, and to endanger their lives. The end result mathematically is quite simple. If you have 100 people and half of them are inclined to be morbidly obese and not exercise, sterilize their kid and abort their kids, they eventually cease to exist. Mm-hmm. If the other half is saying, we're going to have as many kids as possible, we're going to believe in family, we're going to exercise, be healthy, and be responsible, they flourish.
Yeah.
The end result is obvious.
Yeah, but the problem is when a sect of humanity is dying off because it's irrelevant or not functionable, it will take other things down with it. It's like a flailing, drowning person. So you might think once this ballast is cast off, society will be better, but it's really about how, like, if people we'll see like mass money printing to pay for social programs for people that are severely obese in their 70s and 80s, mass injections of pharmaceuticals.
Most people don't live that long, and you're absolutely right. There's going to be a massive burden on the system, especially in the healthcare industry. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you're just cementing my point. It could be very, very destructive for people like this to be let to go, which is why it's important that we call it out when we see it, because it's an addiction. I think a lot of these people are obese because of sugar addiction or high fructose corn syrup or aspartame addiction or all of the above, combining some new unknown problem that we're finally seeing, with video and television obesity.
Yeah. I think it's phthalates, PCBs. So we have glass bottled water here at Timcast in a variety of fashions. We have the stuff that we order. We do have plastic water bottles because some people don't care. But in the studio, we do our own filtered water. We put in glass water bottles. It's the little things, man. I have a feeling that in the future, they're going to start talking about plastics and in food the same way we talk about asbestos.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, they already kind of do there's already concerns about microplastics and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's being found in people's blood, in people's lungs.
Yep.
And that's one aspect of it. But also, a lot of the food is also being genetically engineered to hit the pleasure centers of your brain, but actually have no nutritional value for you. And this is why a lot of people are talking about organ meat. This is why I've been talking about organ meat specifically, because they do have a lot nutritional dense food that is actually good for you compared to all the other fluff and nonsense that is filled with soy and corn.
They want you to believe that red meat is what's going to lead to
which is absolutely
attacks,
crazy. Or that salt is bad, or that fat is bad. When in reality, what are they promoting? They're promoting high fructose corn syrup and seed oils, which are absolutely inflammatory. Your system doesn't know how to handle, and your system's absolutely hijacked by Bill Gates, who wants you to have moobs, and individuals that are gamifying this entire food industry, and also at the same time believe that there's too many people in this world. That should leave a lot of people questioning what's going on here, as he's now vaccinating animals and changing their genetics in order to help the population.
Where did the seed oil thing come from? This is like a new fad that's been taken off.
Well, the seed oils have been introduced in the early 1900s, specifically by Crisco, and ever since Crisco and other seed oils, heavily processed inflammatory oils were introduced into exactly. Essentially, it is exactly like engine oil. Ever since it was introduced, we have seen a skyrocketing of obesity, skyrocketing of heart disease. It used to be rare that people were obese. It used to be rare that the people used to get heart attacks. But ever since the introduction of seed oils, there has been a correlation with this specific uptick of people being extremely unhealthy and dealing with these larger health ailments, health problems that, of course, now almost more and more people have every single day than they ever had before.
What do you think about using the government to break up monopolies? Well, dig this, like the sugar industry has commercials where they sell sugar to kids. They used to have tobacco commercials where they would sell cigarettes to kids or young adults. The government had to say you can't do that anymore because it's an addictive substance.
Hold on, Luke. The Libertarian Party had a guy on stage talk about selling heroin to kids.
So do you think we should
Also
use-
lowering
The
the
U.S.
age of
government
consent.
already does that with big pharma. 1, 2. You look at the sugar industry; they bought off a lot of the scientists and regulators, and they made a big war on fat. Now everything's fat free, and everything's filled with high fructose corn syrup. Gee, I wonder what would lead to less harm: some crackhead selling crack to a small child, or the government what it's doing right now. Well, let's
hold on.
Let's put those.
I got a better one for you, Luke. The food pyramid.
Yeah.
The
exactly.
government introduced
Super healthy.
So I was looking at this story about there's a picture showing a bunch of people in the 60s and they're all like basically ripped.
Yeah.
Like not ripped, but they're all fit.
Just naturally.
And then it's like what happened? And there's a chart showing rise in obesity rates around the late 70s and around the same time the introduction of the food pyramid.
Aspartame as
saying,
well.
saying like the food pyramid basically says eat a ton of bread, eat a ton of grains. I
Terrible.
cut those things out and I've never felt better.
I'll
think
say it
aspartame-
right now, and I'll be brave. I would rather have a crackhead sell crack to a baby than the food pyramid as it is right now, because that would lead to
At
less
least you're
harm.
skinny, right?
That would help
Can I just-
more people at the end of the day. I'm willing
Can I-
to take that official stance right
Can I-
here, right now.
Someone
Can
quote
I
it.
just ask everybody to imagine a baby walking up to a crackhead,
Scratching his face, needing his
One
fix.
please.
requesting crack from the crackhead.
Sell him the crack rock. Sell it.
The baby then
$5,
pulling,
2 for $5.
pulling $5 out of its diaper and requesting crack. I mean,
Someone's got to animate that. But I will say, while we're on the topic of health, is, I smoked cigarettes for a long time from a very young age. I got off of cigarettes. I went to vaping because it's marketed as like the good alternative, right? I would argue that vaping is honestly worse for you. It's wet vapor. You're coating your lungs in wet vapor, and it's not nicotine that you're really being addicted to. Like when I quit vaping, it was the worst thing that I probably have ever, the worst vice I've ever gotten off of is you're literally vaping seed oil, soybean oil. I mean, the most highly addictive things that you're already consuming on a regular basis in your diets. And you're doing that in your lungs consistently over and over and over again. I mean, so I'm going to use this platform to advocate and say, if you're vaping in the audience, it's going to catch a lot of flack. I already know. Just quit. The first 4 days, if you can make it past the first 4 days, you won. Just get
I
it
don't
out
even
of
know
your
what the
system.
point of vaping is.
It's called douche fluting for the record. Everyone needs to understand that. And there's things you should look at. Exactly, popcorn lung.
vitamin E acetate. was causing that.
That was in the dab carts for a long time. And that's when, Trump, I believe, he signed the executive order upping the smoking age from 18 to 21 is because of the vitamin E acetate.
Wow.
They were making carts at home and then selling it to children, and people were just popping up a popcorn lung all of a sudden.
What's popcorn lung?
Crack or
Explain
ingesting seed oils?
popcorn lung.
Well, again, there's many different scientific terms on this. I'm gonna have to look back into this because I was looking into this when I was douche fluting myself. I was smoking cigarettes, and then I got off cigarettes, and I started half douche fluting, half smoking cigarettes. But
Does douche fluting make you feel worse than cigarettes?
It's hard to tell because they're all pretty bad for you. Nicotine, though, does have positive effects for your brain.
In very small doses, though.
With the paper that the government mandates for cigarettes, there's anti-flame paper that the government makes sure that all the big tobacco companies use, which is absolutely horrible for you as
You look
well.
it up?
Well,
What-
in
what
the
is
vape,
popcorn
you're,
lung?
you're vaping metal particles over and over again.
I just
too.
want to recommend for people. There's a great book, "The Easy Way to Quit Smoking." I tried everything to quit smoking, nothing worked, but I read that book and it actually helped me.
Cold
and I
showers.
stopped it, and I stopped
showers.
cold turkey,
All right.
and it was very easy. The easy way to quit smoking.
what's popcorn
Yeah,
lung?
there was a 2 years ago. There was a bit of maybe 3 years ago at this point. It came out that vitamin E acetate was in the nicotine vapes and causing what they call popcorn lung, also known as bronchiolitis obliterans or obliterative bronchiolitis. Wow,
That's a word.
Yeah, it's a disease that results in the obstruction of the smallest airways of the lungs, the bronchioles, due to inflammation.
Wow.
So, there
Well, I
you
mean,
go.
you got to think if you're consistently, and it's not just vitamin E acetate either that can cause this stuff, but that was a large occurrence, and that's what they actually studied. Is if you're inhaling metal, seed oil, soybean oil, and a lot of it's like propylene, glycol, glycerin into your lungs on a regular basis, more often than cigarettes because it doesn't make you stink. It actually makes you smell good. A lot of them are fruity flavors. Yeah. You can hit it discreetly when you're in restaurants, when you're in your house. Anything, anywhere you want. I mean, you're doing this on a regular basis, taking hundreds to thousands of hits a day. Your body, all things in moderation, your body is not going to have a good reaction to smoke filled with all these chemicals and toxins entering you over and over again.
Yeah, can we just bring back natural tobacco and crack already?
Yep.
All right,
Seriously?
hey, listen, guys. Guys, I smoked cigarettes for longer than Taylor's been alive, and I disagree strongly. Cigarettes are the worst damn things in the world. Now, I'm not saying that vaping is good, but I don't want people to get the impression that I'm sitting here saying that smoking is not as bad as vaping without
All of it's terrible.
At least saying something. Smoking is the worst thing in the world. I smoked, like I said, smoked for almost 30 years. It was the hardest thing to quit. I haven't had a drink. I quit drinking 5 years ago, and it was the easiest thing in the world to do. For me personally, and I know that it's not everybody else. I understand that people have different situations, but for me, it was easy. Smoking cigarettes, if I'm around people that smoke too much, I'm not the guy that's like, oh, get that away, that's awful. I'm like, I'm going to beat you up and take them all. Go away. Because it's such, nicotine is such a massive.
I mean, you're smoking the fillers, the arsenic, all of the nasty things that they put in those papers and
They're
to fill the tobacco
that the government
as well.
puts in, and it was one of
They're
the
the
hardest
worst.
things to quit. One of the hardest things that
I mean,
had
hot
to do in my
flashes,
life.
you're angry, you want to just strangle somebody.
It
And a
was
lot
that
of
way
it
with
is
cigarettes,
psychological.
too.
A lot of this is in your head. A lot of this is subconscious because of all the propaganda everywhere that you don't realize. But again, reading that book changed my life, made me quit. I don't want to smoke. People are smoking around me. I'm like, I don't even care anymore. If you haven't read that book, The Easy Way to Quit Smoking, I can't recommend it enough.
What's the easy way you like?
You read the book, and in the book it tells you, hey, you could smoke as you're reading this, and then it breaks down all the propaganda to why you're smoking. It breaks down all the bullcrap. It breaks down all the marketing and all the lies that you convince yourself that makes you want to smoke, and then you kind of unwind the propaganda in your head as you're reading this book as you're smoking, and at the end of the book you're like, I just don't want to smoke.
The easiest thing for me to quit was I remember I went on a hike and I had just went off on a little tour, and I used to be very athletic, in high school, and I used to do bodybuilding. I used to do the whole 9 yards, and I climbed, about 20 rocks off this trail, and I got to the top, and I felt like my lungs were going to explode. And ever since that day, I didn't hit a vape. It was like almost a switch being flipped into my head. It was like, okay, I can actually see that it's affecting me now. And it was very, very hard. I mean, the first week I literally wanted to kill somebody. I mean, the anger is incredible.
I found that too with cutting addiction is with a purpose. Like I had gained weight when I was 23, 24, I was eating a lot of McDonald's for lunch and drinking a lot of Pepsi or Coke or whatever. And I gained like 20 pounds. For the first time in my life, I was 160. And I was like, man, I look fat. I can't be an actor if I'm fat. I can't. So I have to not be fat. I have a goal.
If you have
in
a
mind.
reason, it makes things a lot easier.
Did you ever roll your own cigarettes or
Not,
like just buy tobacco?
no, I
like
did.
just pure tobacco.
Yep,
I
I
like
did.
those. I mean, I understand the addictive nature and obviously the carcinogens involved with burning anything and inhaling it. But like without the filters, which I've heard have asbestos. They don't have asbestos.
They
have
used to.
fiberglass.
In the 50s, they
had-
had cigarettes that had asbestos in the filters.
So imagine
Yeah.
what they don't know how bad it is for you now and that stuff. They have fiberglass in there to cut up the inside of your lungs so that it
Rat
gets in the
poison.
bloodstream faster.
The fiberglass, was that the crack ones or whatever?
I do think it was like the Camel Crushes, things
Yeah.
like that. So it adds flavor to it. But in reality, you're just sucking down glass.
And it gets you higher faster and more addicted quicker because it's getting into your bloodstream faster.
Well, while we're on the subject of the collapse of civilization, we got this story from the Daily Mail. New graphic reveals extent of the Great Resignation. How many have quit their jobs since 2021 and which industries have been hit the hardest? I saw this and it's kind of crazy. The Great Resignation isn't over yet. November 2022, 4.17 million, the number of people quitting their jobs in the U.S. seasonally adjusted. So, I don't know. People are quitting their jobs. Nobody wants to work. People are unhealthy. They're doing drugs. Is this
it's an opportunity.
a black pill or?
Opportunity for a new industry. There are workers that want to get jobs. Now
No, they
time
don't.
to
They
quit
don't
something
want
new.
jobs.
Yeah,
No one wants to work.
I feel like a lot of this is my generation too, like Gen Z, is we've been fed this idea. I call them the participation trophy generation, is because they expect everything handed to them. They expect to be paid $15 to $30 for flipping burgers at a McDonald's. Meanwhile, someone with a doctorate is being paid $30 an hour. I mean, this is the generation, and you're seeing it with the millennials and with Gen Z and a few other generations, is they don't want to work and they don't find value in actually working hard.
Well, I don't know for sure. I appreciate that you said that, but I don't know them, so I'd have to go case by case. But I for sure I believe they're quitting jobs they hate. Doesn't mean that they're going to hate the next job they get.
But there's also a lot of inflation, as Ian is saying, and there's also a record amount of the dollar being absolutely devalued to the point where people are like, why should I work when I could barely make ends meet, when I could just get a government check, right? So that's also going into the perspective here. And at the same time, when you're giving everyone participation trophies, when you're hiring and promoting based off race and based off sexuality rather than actual merit, what gives you the incentive to actually be good at your job when you're only going to be selected because of the way you look or what you decide to shove up inside of you, right? So
I think that the
or
value
not shove up inside of you.
the value of time has
or to shove
increased.
something inside someone else.
Have you
Yeah,
guys
that's
got
right.
clarify
that like working for hourly is maybe a defunct method of payment for employees these days? Because like I feel like you can get so much more done per hour than you used to be able to do.
You're thinking about the wrong jobs, though, I think. For somebody who's got a specific job, like I need you here
Right.
handing bags of food out for 3 hours, hourly makes sense. You're not going to do it by, like, for every bag you hand out, you get 10 cents. You know what I mean?
Because, man, our wage slave sucks. You guys ever do that? I mean,
Actually,
pretty much
that's an
everybody.
interesting idea. Let's try that. Let's do that. When I open the coffee shop, I'll say, for every cup of coffee you hand out, I'll give you a dime.
Dude, you know they'll be upselling that. You want another one? You want 2 cups? You sure? Your buddy's here but hasn't had one yet.
I think the problem is that they're making no money.
Oh, not on top of do it on top of the salary.
No, I'm
Just
saying
like,
if we want to talk about hourly versus actual sales, it's like what are you paying a person for? It's like the funny thing about the left. There's this funny meme I saw. It said the left, the Marxists are like the profits should all be shared among the workers. And then the guy responds and says, then if the company accrues debt and loses money, then the debt needs to be split among all workers as well. And then the Marxist gets all angry because they never talk about that one. But let's put it this way. The Marxist view would be like, okay, how about this? Instead of paying you an hourly wage for you to sell coffee, I'll give you a portion of the labor you produce. Like, okay, so I work to get the cups and the coffee. You work to distribute them. I will share with you a portion of the revenue. I think they'd end up making like substantially less money doing that. Like imagine you're working at a coffee shop and it's a slow morning. It's like, well, I made 30 cents today because no one came in for coffee. Yeah, well, too bad. That's equality, right?
I've been there as a waiter, making $2.13 an hour plus tips, and some days you'd get 3 tables, walk out with like $14.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the most criminal thing to me in the U.S. is like that you pay waiters like $1 an hour, and then you're saying, oh, well, they'll make it in tips. I never understood
The
why
food
we do that
industry
here.
is hell. If any of you guys have ever worked in it, it actually is like being a server is a terrible job.
It depends
never
because
done
you
it.
can get that good one where you $250 meals at night and you get like 7 tables.
no.
You
But
That's
cooking you
so
do.
rare
Oh.
though in that
that was my
industry.
life.
Usually you're serving soy slop on plates to people, running around. I mean, you have
Yeah, Ian,
hundreds of people filling, and you have sections cut out for certain servers.
Being
You're
a
serving 10
server-
people at a time.
Being a server, you're probably going to be a server at a place like Applebee's or like Longhorn Steakhouse or something along those lines. Those are the most
Profitable.
profitable, but the most common restaurants that you find, and you're not finding wealthy people going in there dropping a lot of money. People that go to Longhorn Steakhouse are not like, I'm going to go out and spend $300 and then tip the waiter $100. They're going to go, they're going to spend their $150 or whatever for their family, and they're going to give the waiter $15 because.
Yeah, I've been there. East Side Mario's, Bo's Tavern, list goes on, man. I worked at so many different restaurants.
They're those places. The predominant, the predominant restaurants in the U.S. aren't places where people go that have a lot of money. That they're going for a little treat for their family.
Well, especially now, I mean, tipping is going down too in the food industry is because the prices are going up.
Yeah.
So
Way up,
you're
way
the
up.
same thing you would get a few years ago at your favorite restaurant for $10. You're now spending $20 on. So then you're minimizing your tip as well.
I guess you're supposed to. Well, you're supposed to not. You do whatever you want. You don't have to tip if you don't want to, but give them 20% of the bill. So if the food cost doubles, then they'll be getting double the tip.
But that's discouraging a lot of people from even eating out now too, is because they don't have that money necessarily to tip.
Where's all the money? What happened? It went to the Ukraine? Are there like just really rich people that are hoarding their hundreds of billions offshore?
No.
Where's all the money?
What do you mean?
They just printed like 4 trillion or 6 trillion or something. Where's
Big Pharma is creating more billionaires than any other industry out there right now. And during COVID, there was a large transfer of wealth.
The biggest
from
wealth transfer in the history, right?
I think the history of the world.
Yeah.
Where we saw the most amount of money go from everyone to the billionaire class. And the billionaires doubled, tripled their wealth, while everyone else was left holding the bag. As, of course, they weren't allowed to have private enterprise. They weren't allowed to have businesses, as the government came in and said, Mom and Pop, you got to shut down. Walmart has to be open.
Strip clubs, liquor store, you guys can stay open.
it's leading me to want to be like workers of the world unite. Let's take our money back. But we all know how that turned out. So we're trying to figure out a different way.
no.
Like we're trying to find out a 21st century.
Where's the hammer and sickle?
Yeah, I've got plenty. Oh, you have right here these hammers.
No.
Thank you, Phil.
well,
You
we
see what I
know-
have to do?
Yes.
You sure you want this job?
We know that the populace.
I will reign in Ian's authoritarian and totalitarian.
I think it's funny. I mean, like, You guys are more libertarian anarchist. Ian's more government liberal collectivist.
I'm being honest because I think a lot of people are feeling what I'm feeling. The frustration's building. I'm like, you know what? Populist uprising. If that's what it takes, we'll just get a bunch of famous people to scream it out on Thursday at 2, and then that's when it begins.
I mean, that has never worked. Populist, no, they don't.
You're right.
They've always ended up with worse governments. People say that America, I'm going to get into a little rant here. People say that the United States is not a unique country. There's nothing special about the United States. The United States is one of a vanishingly few countries in the world that had a revolution and came out better on the other side. Right? Like the revolution that the United States had when we separated from the British, the United States was a more free country and then went on to become an even more free country as we continue to work towards the ideals set forth in the Bill of Rights and the Constitution.
You know what? And if people are asking the question, that's Tim playing with the Gooch sound stick healing energy bar.
You know what's appalling to me is when we literally overthrew this government, and we started, I can't say we, but our ancestors, and the founding fathers started, America. What is America now? Is we were actually being taxed decently fairly, okay? And now you see what's going on with these 87,000 IRS agents and everything else, and it's like, where, I keep hearing from all these people that revolution is in our blood. And it's like, where?
Well,
that's why I brought this up.
Look at the Declaration of Independence. I mean, the list of grievances was more than just taxes.
Yeah, of course.
So I bring it up because I'm feeling grieved right now at the system, like the mass redistribution of wealth to the top, these things of people consolidating wealth. How do we revolt against that or change that without creating a violent populist uprising, which we know doesn't work?
Legal and local. You get involved in your local area.
Local governments.
You get people that share your opinions and political views elected to local office, because the people that have the most effect in your life are the local politicians. You also have the most opportunity to affect their lives. If you go down to the general store or whatever and you bump into your selectman or your mayor or whatever, you can give him the stink eye. Give him dirty looks and let him know that he's unhappy. And you're going to have the best chance of having a response from your local government than you will from state or federal. But then after your local, then you go for state, because the state governments have an enormous amount of ability to pass laws and legislate. They have all kinds of authority to legislate. There's only a handful of things that they're prevented from legislating by the federal government. So to think that we need to overthrow the federal government is a massive error. What you need to do is get in touch with James Lindsay and help get people elected to school boards, right, in your local area, because that is how you affect the most immediate change, and it's also peaceful and it's legal.
Yep. Well, and I'd agree with, local is always more important than federal. My reporting on the drag stuff, the past half a year that I've been doing it in Texas alone, the GOP has already, in Texas GOP has already made it one of their top priorities, is to basically reword the coding of the sexual, involvement with children, what you can do in front of children. And now that the new legislative session is coming around, they're talking about passing laws to ban children from these sexually explicit shows. So anyone can make a difference on a local level, but you just need to know how to do it and need to do it in an effective way.
I'm not so sure the laws are going to fix that problem, though.
They're just going to go underground.
No, I don't think so either. In Arkansas, they're trying to make drag shows adult, the same thing as like a stripping or whatever. But it's already illegal to perform sex acts, simulated sex acts in front of children in Texas, and they don't do anything about it.
Yep. Well, I think it's the way that the penal code, or I'm not sure, I'm not really well written on law, but the way that it's written is that's what allows it to happen. So the GOP is going to go in and try and tighten it up. I don't have that much faith in the GOP, obviously, for very understandable reasons.
I disagree. I'm pretty sure that if you walked up to a playground and did what those people did,
you'd be in jail.
So there's no difference.
Yeah.
The issue is that the cops culturally are unwilling to enforce it.
Well, and Dallas PD, Fresno, Frisco PD, all of these places that I've covered these drag shows in, they know what's going on is wrong, but they're not willing to actually do anything about it. Yeah, they're terrified. It's understandable in a lot of aspects, but the same way, it's like someone needs to be the first officer to make an arrest, to go in here and to drag these drag queens or drag kings, because they are all men at this point. That's what we should call them.
Did you just say that cops in Texas are scared?
Crazy. Uvalde? What?
Terrified.
I am shocked that police officers in the great state of Texas are frightened, guys.
Hey, you guys aren't backing the blue enough.
No. No.
I think that's the root problem here.
I back good ideas and
gotta
good
lick the
people.
boot.
I don't
They like
back
the boot
things
lick.
just because.
Well, and if these officers walked in and they dragged these people out, I would be, clapping and cheering, jumping up and down with joy, but you just don't see that. No one is actually willing to be the first person to do this because they know it's going to cause a lot of crap for them in the future, which someone needs to stand up and do it, but it's just a matter of who and when.
I hear Florida's doing some actions against those kind of drag.
At least they're trying to,
shows.
yeah.
So
buddy of mine in New Hampshire is also doing the same thing. He's in the New Hampshire State Legislature. Mike Belcher, follow him on Twitter. He's got actual legislation that he's presented to keep the kind of woke mind virus stuff out of the law in New Hampshire. So,
But if people look, it's only a matter of time. These laws get overturned, get removed if people don't speak up. Because I said it before, I'll say it again. If there's you and a leftist, and you're like, I'm too scared to speak, the leftist is screaming nonstop.
Yep.
The children only hear the leftist.
Right.
So that's it. You got to speak up.
you hit the nail on the head a long time ago when you talked about how the leftists are the ones that'll make the noise, and that's why they don't get banned from platforms. Platforms just one.
And look,
Yeah,
look at how bad right-wingers are actually organizing things too. That's what I've noticed the past few years is the only thing that's like actually been like a successful organization of the right has been like the Stop the Steal and the MAGA Million marches. Those are really the only things that I've seen that have like been semi-successful. Anytime you go, even in Texas, the people, the Catholics and everybody that organize against these drag shows, they're severely outnumbered every single time by local John Brown Gun Club and Antifa. And you're in Texas.
Yeah.
Crazy.
in Texas.
Yeah,
Of all places.
Everyone talks about how much they love Texas, and I am one not to support that. One, it's flat, and two, there is more sexual exploitation of children going on there than I would argue anywhere in the country.
That's true. And the border, too.
The border is out of control.
I read a story about some lady. She said she walked out of a bar. It was like a post on Reddit, I think. And her boyfriend and his two friends were like 10 feet in front of her. A car creeps up. They open the door, jump out, grab her, and try dragging her in. She starts screaming. Her boyfriend and the guys run over and grab her, pull her out of the car before and then they speed off. It's just like,
Well, and
they just street kidnap women in Texas and then
It's
drive
normal.
them.
Well, and you can literally walk down. Like 2 years ago, this didn't exist really. Language barriers in Dallas did not really exist. But now, if you go and try and film like a man on the street video or anything in Dallas, you're going to run into people that do not even speak English. This is a new thing happening. You're having hundreds of thousands and millions of people coming over the Texas border. And then instead of actually deporting them, Greg Abbott just wants to ship them to other states, which are still in our country.
That's right.
It's a nice publicity stunt. Cool the first few times you do it, but they're
people are
still
like-
in your country.
People were telling me, well, they don't have the right to deport. It's a federal thing. They can't deport. It's a state thing. And I'm like, so send them into the country? That's crazy.
Yeah, send them farther in where they can
Right.
spread out and diversify even more. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
You think
So
that
wait,
Texas should be able to deport? You think there
Absolutely.
should be a state law?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole Texas sovereignty, it's a load of crap. Texas should be able to deport absolutely anybody that they want. If you're crossing, actually last time I was at the border and doing some border reporting, there was thousands coming over. It was insane.
Yeah.
It's something I've never seen before. I crossed the Rio Grande with these people, and I actually was capturing these people as they were being processed on video, and National Guard and Border Patrol pulled their cars in front and told me that I'm not able to record because it was the request of these migrants. And I said, okay, so the migrants who aren't even citizens here, they have more rights than me as a member of the press, freedom of the press that doesn't exist. Like, their right trumps mine, and this should have said yes. So it's like, there's a very big problem going on at the border, specifically in Texas, and we're going to feel it for a very long time.
All right. White pill or black pill? Do you think we're we're going to make it through this? Do you think it's going to get worse?
I like to say, I like to take a black pill in the morning and then a white pill at night before I go to bed. That's what I like to do. But everything is going to get worse before it gets better. That's how it always goes. It's always going to get significantly worse. And yeah, is there going to be an upturn? I do think there eventually will be an upturn. But the next few years, they're going to get pretty bad.
So you're speedballing.
Basically. Got it. It's like the crack to the baby, but to me.
It's kind of like
Might as well. Hey.
working out. You got to traumatize the muscle and then let it rest. So whether or not
You
we
got to break it
traumatize-
down and then rebuild it.
Yeah, and we're in the breakdown phase right
Yep.
now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What is it? Infiltrate, destroy, and rebuild?
Yeah.
That's where
Yeah,
we're
the
at.
easiest way to destroy something is from within. And that's exactly what you're seeing right now across the country.
Yeah, true that.
Plus,
Man.
you just got to use.
So we got to
like-
protect the IRS. We can't let them dismantle it.
You got to like use your force of will to manipulate people's emotions to make them more American, like to make them more liberty loving.
What?
We're in a battle of wills, of
Ian,
spirit.
why are you hurting me?
This is what you call-
I haven't been here I haven't seen you in like 3 weeks or something, and now you're harming me.
it's 'cause
Why
we-
are you hurting my heart? I thought we were friends.
He's trying to bully me before I leave.
We in a culture war, baby, and I fight dirty. Are you ready? That was a little Bill Maher.
I mean, your point is right. But the thing is, Americans, and specifically children, need to be taught that America is not an evil place, right? That a liberal society is not inherently bad, because what they're being taught is that a liberal society is bad because a liberal society makes room for racism. That's what they're taught. When you hear critical race theory, the critical part is criticizing the existing structures, which is our society, and race is the means that they're using to criticize.
And America is a very beautiful thing and a beautiful place, but it's the leaders in charge. That's what people need to be taught. America is great.
It's not about the leaders in charge. It's people need to understand the fundamental ideals that the United States was founded on, and they need to understand why they are important. It is important to know why property rights matter.
Bigoted.
It's important to know why free speech matters. These things matter to our society, and without them, we do not have the society that we have grown with.
We're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, the most powerful way to support us, and become a member at Timcast.com. We're going to have that members-only uncensored show coming up about 11 p.m. Let's get into these Super Chats. Carlo Magno TV says, I demand an Alex Jones with your Phil Labonte episode, Tim. I just want to say, okay, yes, that would be nice. But you know, the last time we had Alex on, I was like, we need someone who can kind of help keep things calm and reel things in. We asked Phil to come on, and I lied! Instead of actually doing that, I'm like, Phil, help me out. And Phil goes, yes! And just lets Alex go completely off.
It was so much fun.
I was like, no, what are you doing? So yeah, that'd be great. We'd do it again. It'd be fun.
You're going to use the man that screams for a living to calm things down. I think you need to rethink that.
But he's a smart guy, you know. I'm like, he's gonna bring some rationality, and he just let.
And I fool you.
It was fun though. Kyle says Will Chamberlain was wrong about the holdouts. Have him back on to take the L.
Yeah, Will, come back on. I've been thinking about you a lot, man.
We like Will. It's fun.
It's nice.
Yeah, I think, man, I'm so impressed with what Matt Gaetz, Lauren Boebert, and the rest of that crew did, especially Matt Gaetz when he walked in and voted present. It was great.
I love it. Incredibly
Well, Gaetz has been changing the whole dynamic between like talking to like mainstream press as well and putting out press statements. He's just been going into normal people's Twitter spaces and taking questions and fielding questions from constituents. I mean, it's huge. And the mainstream press will sit in the audience, not being allowed to speak, and they'll just be fuming. And then they'll end up writing articles up about it.
I wonder at what point that the congressmen will realize that the people are there for them and want to work together, like what Gaetz is doing. Like the more people that realize, oh, Twitter Spaces, communication, video chats.
Well, Gaetz and Boebert have done a really good job at really, going that route, and people they're being very receptive to it.
Cortez too. She's great at that.
Well, AOC is great. Not necessarily at actually tapping into her base. What her and like Ilhan Omar are great is like going on a stream with like Hassan that's highly edited, right? Pretty much pre-scripted before, somebody that already agrees with all their ideals that doesn't push back, and they'll go on or they'll play video games and get asked all these convenient questions. So it seems and it makes it appear like they're actually being available to their base, or AOC will live stream and sometimes read very selective comments. And it's like that they do a really good job at that, but they're not doing quite what Gaetz and Boebert are doing. Is Gaetz and Boebert are actually allowing constituents to ask them questions. And you never know if a question could fly off the handle at any point. It could be a very inconvenient question, but they'll answer it anyways. But AOC, it's all scripted.
All right, Ian Bridges says, Tim, I like the more segments per day, like the old days. Are you showing the live stream like you were last week? If you are, I didn't find it. I'd have it on when I'm home during the week. Thanks. So initially, I was like, I'll do a live show in the morning and then record my segments while I'm live. It didn't work out as I thought it would. And so I think that's probably not the way I'll go. But I started doing 3 10 to 15 minute segments like I used to 6:15 and 6:30 at youtube.com/timcastnews. But one of the things we have kind of, getting molded together as a potential 8 to 10 a.m. live morning news hangout kind of show. And maybe we'll have Phil there for it. But we're trying to figure it out. We don't know exactly how we're going to handle it because it has to work. But I think with the new studio space we're building, I can see it in my mind, and I am so excited. It's like we've got this big 40-foot tall building, this big garage door. It's going to be sunlight pouring in through that open door. There's going to be skate ramps everywhere. On the first floor, there's this big, what is it? I think it's 25 by 60 feet or something like that. We're going to have this big room with a couch and TV, and people are going to be sitting down, and we're going to have these cameras rolling. I'm really excited for what we got set up. And then someone can just skate in, sit down, and be like, what's going on in this morning show? I'm like, oh, here's the news. And we just hang out in the mornings. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. And that will lead right into my first segment at 10 a.m. Mm-hmm. So that's how that it's an idea. It's an idea.
I like that more.
Yeah, we're really just once the new studio is done and it looks awesome, then we'll know for sure. The other thing we have is we have the building for the new coffee shop, skate shop, game shop, hangout place, and studio. And it just takes a long time to do construction build. One of the biggest challenges we're facing right now is a shortage of supplies. So we're trying to get internet installed at Freedomistan, and we're told, oh yeah, we're ready to install everything, permitted, good, ready to go. No supplies available. Sorry, no cabling, no materials, can't do it. I'm like, well, how do we get internet? Well, the system seems to be breaking down. Kevin Brady says, Phil took my dog and married my wife.
Why'd you do that, Phil?
Come on, man.
Sounds like something you would do.
No, it didn't happen.
Well,
Plausible deniability.
And then he lied about it.
The wife is actually outside the studio right now, same with the dog.
I'm not married, and me and my ex are not cool. So
Christina H says, why are chickens so funny? Because
Funny.
Chickens are funny because they just have goofy faces and they look at you and they're all innocent about it.
Yeah, they'd rip you open if they were 4 times your size.
Right. Yeah, Roberto Jr. would walk up and just rip your stomach right open and just eat you, and you, without even looking at you, and you'd be like, ah.
We got a deep dive on the terror bird one day. You guys ever see that thing?
Yeah,
it's 10 foot.
Mm-hmm. Trash Panda says, baby steps, Luke. Rome wasn't built in a day. Give it a few years and there will be a serious push to get rid of the deep state. Don't be black-pilled.
Take the speedball, Luke. Come on.
I don't like the Rome. I was saying that too. Rome wasn't built in a day as Roman patriarch propaganda. The Romans, man, they're in our minds, and they were racist, genocidal maniacs.
Well, fair point.
I would argue, did Rome even end? Are we just the new Roman Empire?
It's the Roman Catholic Church now is the Roman Empire, basically. Yeah.
Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, Tayler, I'm a big fan of your hit song, Mbop.
There it is. What did I say before the segment? Someone was going to say it.
That was you?
S.A. Federali says, great guests again. Without Tayler, I would still be wrong about what happened to Ashley. Luke, don't make Phil lose his voice. The guy has amazing things to say. Let him speak.
Phil, one more time. Let's hear that war.
I see Serge getting ready to drop the mic.
There we go.
Is that coming from your lower diaphragm?
That's a fry scream, actually. So
a fry scream?
Yeah, it comes from a certain part of my vocal cords. I engage what they call your false cords as well as your regular cords.
So you work prevents damage?
Not prevents damage, but it's the way to get that raspy kind of sound to it. So that was a pitched yell, and then there's another scream that I do that's purely fry. That's more like it sounds like black metal, and I can do. It's a bunch of different things that you can do.
Can you do that one too?
Oh, come on.
That one I can really draw out really long.
You work those chords out? Is that how you're able to do that?
Yeah. There's exercises that you have to do, and normally I would do warm-ups and stuff like that, but I'm not actually performing a whole show, so it's not that big of a deal if I don't do warm-ups. Although, if I'm going to be talking for regularly, I probably will start doing warm-ups before. Anyway,
that'd be good to do on the show.
Well, the plan was, this is going to be crazy because the plan was Friday night jam sessions.
That'd be fun.
We were talking about doing it here because we had that space, but we never quite got it set up. With the new space, we're actually going to have a music area, and we were talking about Friday night at the end of the show, because we're all going to be hanging out, just having the camera turn on and someone could jam out. Hey, you'll be here.
I'll be here. I like playing guitar.
Frey Kane says, Tim's earlier segment on genderqueer reminded me heavily of A Child Called It. Poor kid was so starved, he ate a used diaper. Ooh.
Damn.
Jeez.
Man.
Trauma. That's how to get you.
Yep. Faith Mara says, got super excited when y'all brought up roller derby last night. Unfortunately, the roller derby community is woke AF.
Yeah, it is.
Just know that you have at least one roller derby chick fan. Love you, Tim and crew. Well, then we got to start our own unwoke roller derby.
Yeah.
There's your next idea. You're going to start a roller rink.
Well, we got someone here who quads. You know, it's like roller skates, does tricks. She's pretty good. So we got to just get more of that. You know, I think it's great.
Is it possible to learn to drop in if you're over 40?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
I've never dropped into a half pipe, but I think that I want to
Lean
learn
forward
that being
really
around here.
hard.
It's kind of weird because once you learn how to drop in, I don't know if like lean forward makes sense to me when someone says about dropping in, because sometimes I kind of don't lean forward. It's just like if you can control your core, you don't really think about it. So depending on the trick I want to do, I'll lean more forward or lean more back. You know, I don't know.
I want to learn how to skateboard now.
I mean, it's good fun. It's
You're
good
going to
fun.
get hurt a lot.
Well, on Saturday,
sure.
we'll get you a board, and on Saturday we'll be riding around.
Yeah.
Do some tray flips or something. It was funny. Someone commented when I posted it, Tim Pool, 37-year-old skateboarder, and I'm like, well, I'll be 37 in 2 months, but yes,
Yeah.
that's it. I guess Tony Hawk's 50-something. He's still
Yeah,
going.
Tony Hawk's still the man, kind of, right?
Is he using a crutch? I saw him in a picture with
Yeah,
a crutch.
well, he had a
He broke
surgery
his-
or
he
something.
broke his
yeah.
femur. You know, Tony Hawk broke his femur and then kept skating. And I guess it was healing, and then it disjointed because he was putting too much pressure on it skating.
Yep.
And then he had to go in for surgery again. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Tony, dude, a voice
Yeah.
of the people. Come on out, man. You got any connections with
That would
T-Bone?
be legend.
Yeah, we gotta get
That'd be
Tony on the
epic.
show.
Say T-Bone?
T-Bone, man.
T-Bone?
T-Hawk.
Probably,
I love
but
Tony.
he's not a very political guy. I don't know.
Yeah,
if
he just be chill.
I don't know if maybe he can come skate the park once it gets set
Pop
up.
culture crisis.
I mean,
Pop
you do
culture is-
basically own Independent now, so there you go.
Well, we don't own Independent.
No, but you own the logo, so.
Well, it's not their logo anymore.
Yeah,
They abandoned it.
It's a T, dude.
So I will say, that cross logo. I have ordered 10 boards,
Sick.
Timcast boards. I don't even know what size they are. They're probably 8 inches, and we're just gonna give them out. They might be 8.5. I'm not sure.
Oh, if it's
I think
8.5,
it's.
I want
I think
one.
it's 8.5.
Yeah, cool.
8.5.
do you
Yeah.
expect people to show up and kind of push back on your skating event?
I'm not doing an event. I'm just literally showing up to DC's Freedom Plaza.
Yeah. But
There's
do you,
no
do you
event.
expect people to show
I have
up
no
and
idea.
try and cause problems?
I mean, here's the thing. If we like got a permitted thing, put up a tent, had speakers, you could shut it down. Anybody could.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh no, what do we do? You can't shut down me just being somewhere.
Yeah.
You can tell me I can't be there and then cause problems, and I can be like, okay, I'll go skate there. And then I'll like walk 20 feet and skate somewhere else. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like we did a speaking event at this theater, and then they canceled the contract on us. It's civil. I mean, they owe us money, but Antifa threatened to burn the theater down, so I get it.
Nice people.
Well, you know, I'm like, we're not doing an event. I'm just going to be literally standing in an open space.
Yeah.
And so if people, you know what I think's going to happen? I think no wacko leftists will actually show up. I think a bunch of skateboarders might show up.
Yeah.
I think a bunch of fans might show up. And it'll just be a fun day in DC, and we'll get to hand out some boards or something.
I mean, if anything, they should be happy about this event because you're handing out skateboards.
Yeah, we're going to give away probably like 50 boards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's give it back to the community. 10 a.m., guys.
With
Be there.
trucks and
It'll be
everything,
fun.
too?
No. I don't have
Just
trucks
the
to give
decks.
away. But it's Timcast boards. We got Step on Snack and Find Out boards, and then we just have regular old Timcast boards. All the Timcast boards are 8.5 because that's what I ride, and then all the Step on Snack ones vary in size. From
Are they
seven-
already gripped or is it just wood?
just wood?
Just wood.
Yeah, I got to get your own grip. We have grip. Maybe bring some out, but I don't think we have enough to give out. So it's just like you get a board, go find the grip yourself. I think it'll be interesting to see what people do. I mean, if there really are a bunch of woke crazies who are mad at giving out boards, what are they going to say when we flood DC with Timcast skateboards? Yo, I will literally. I'm not kidding. I will give away 1,000 skateboards in the DC area. I will make sure that every kid has a brand new board to skate on to get more kids skating. It's good marketing.
Get outside and get some exercise. That ain't bad.
I already sent like I think I sent like 50 boards to a local shop that I was like the guys were we walked into this shop, and you know, you never know if you're walking into a woke place or not, and then you know what I hear as soon as I walk in? Listen, people, you got to understand when they're coming for your income tax. And I was like, oh, these guys are going to be cool. And then they knew who we were, and I was like, I'm going to send you a bunch of boards. Feel free to do whatever you want. Give them away, sell them free. We'll just send them to you. We send them out some boards.
Yeah.
I'll do the same thing. And then people are going to be like, I'm so annoyed. Like,
They're seeing Timcast everywhere.
well, so I think here's the challenge I've thought about with this. If I keep giving away free skateboards as sort of like a marketing promotion and cultural thing, it's going to start hurting local skate shops. Because people are going to be like, I don't know, Tim Pool just gave me a free board.
Yeah.
I needed, like, you know, I don't need to buy from a
But
local
I don't
shop.
think a lot of people are going to. I mean, some people will skate on them, but people that know you probably aren't actually going to skate on them. They'll probably hang their deck up or use
That's a
it
good point.
in
But
an
right,
aspect of like
but
that.
like, if we give out 1,000 boards, there's a lot of kids who need a new boards. A lot of
Yeah.
parents are going to be like, cool, free board. So one thing I might do is just give the boards for free to shops that are willing to take them in the area. And I know a few of the shops are super woke, so they probably won't, but whatever.
Can you give away just the board without the wheels
That's
and the
what we're
grip?
doing.
And then
Yeah, it's
that'll
called the deck.
Then they'll have to go buy the deck.
Right.
Okay. You give out the
You have
deck.
to get
They
your
got to go
trucks
buy
and your
the trucks.
bearings, and everything else.
That could actually enhance sales at local shops if you give
Yeah,
out a lot
true.
of just boards.
I mean, at least for the accessories, like for bearings and trucks and everything.
Maybe what I'll do is at the new shop we're opening, I'll sell the decks for like $10 a piece. So like professional grade, top industry level decks, but we take a huge loss on them because it's basically a marketing budget for us.
Yeah.
If we get people riding around on Timcast up on snack boards, that's generating a lot of attention for us, which is a good thing. And we can afford to do it, and it can have a huge impact on the culture, so we subsidize it. And then all the kids in the DC area are all going to be riding the same graphics and the same company. And then we'll get a skate team. We'll pay our riders a salary, something no one else does.
Literally.
We will hire on 5 skaters at a salary to be on the team to produce clips and segments and rep the board and all that stuff. I think it's going to be a blast.
Do you think you'll eventually go into like manufacturing trucks and wheels
No.
and bindings?
Wheels are easy.
Yeah.
But everything's basically private label. Trucks are much more difficult, really
Yeah, it's
expensive.
going to be the most expensive part of the whole board. for
Wheels
sure.
actually, maybe even before decks, because wheels there's a lot of companies that do urethane,
Yeah, it's
and I like super hard wheels because I like, when I'm riding street, I want to be able to slide around. So let's read some more super chats. All right, John Kirsten says, Tim, you talk about the FBI and the Whitmore plot. Look into Brandon Caserta
He's great.
on I know Phil started following him. Look forward to seeing you in DC.
I can put you in contact with Brandon. I was supposed to do an interview with him, but I got a little bit busy. He's one of the people that was acquitted in the Whitmer kidnapping.
Interesting.
He is a great guy, and
Arta-
he's willing to do interviews too.
Artemisia says Adam Schiff looks like he hates Napster. He kind of does, right?
That's a great comment.
Bravo.
That's a good one.
All right. The Lion says a $5 for Luke hanging the Polish power gear behind him.
Oh, nice.
Damn right.
What does
What is
that
it?
mean?
It's Jan Blachowicz. He is a Polish UFC fighter that
cool.
is a really smart fighter, and he was a former champion. And he's probably going to be fighting for the championship soon. So that's his walkout jersey and has the Polish eagle on there. So represent.
Tim Jakes is a 21-year-old Air Force Academy football player dropped dead today on his way to class. No cause of death at this time, only that he suffered a medical emergency. Yeah, these things happen. Sudden adult death syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sad.
Climate
and-
change. It's
yeah.
serious,
Yep,
man.
it's
It's
all
hot
climate
out there.
change.
People are spontaneously dying because of the temperature. Did you see that story on Vice? That's right.
Oh, I got what that's called. Did you? What's the word?
Is it the wet bulb thing?
Yes,
Yeah,
wet,
wet
bulb.
bulb.
Yep.
Wet bulb. I'm going to pull up the definition while you're.
People get sweaty, then the humidity builds up, then they can't release heat.
Yeah, what happens is the air is evaporating off of them at such a pace that they're not actually cooling down as it's happening, so they end up overheating.
Wow. I was
climate
skating
change.
I was skating in Phoenix once. I was at Tempe, and it was like 110 degrees, but I felt totally fine, and I wasn't sweaty because the sweat evaporated so fast that you don't feel the sweat on you, and it's cooling you down, but you dehydrate super
Way
quick.
quick. Yeah. It's
Crazy. David Scott says on the Parks Department, that is public land owned by the people, and we only have access to a small portion of it, and only for the uses they deem acceptable.
Sounds like something a communist would say.
I think he's agreeing with you, though. I think he's complaining that it's supposed to be our land, but they're keeping us off of it.
You can't skate in most parks, can you?
The worst thing is like, hey, there's a big, beautiful park. You show up, you're at the gate, and then some statist, some communist comes out of his little toilet booth. He's like, "Do you have a reservation? I need a reservation to be in the park. Are you kidding me?" It's just so infuriating. We were in where were we? Austin. We went to that amazing park. We were supposed to go on this amazing hike. We showed up at the gate, and what did they say?
Oh, yeah, they said we're full.
They're full. I'm like, what?
There's a capacity.
There's
Yeah,
a capacity to being in nature?
All right, Squid Bugs Anonymous says, Tim, I'm one of the 4% that voted to keep the IRS. Just kidding, I'm an ANCAP that doesn't believe in voting. Luke, you say you're an anarchist, yet you keep advocating for choosing your next slave driver. No slaves, no masters.
I don't think I ever advocated for a slave driver. Name me a slave driver. I
DeSantis.
advocated for it. I didn't advocate for it. I said be skeptical of them, just like I did everybody else. But as I compared to politicians before, I said politicians are all buttholes. Some of them are more stinky buttholes than others. But they're at the end of the day, they all have crap that comes out of them. So. Be critical of everybody, and I disagree with you, bro.
Michael Justice says Tim's skateboard event is a psyop to flush out his swatters. Timcast Secret Service will be waiting and watching. Love from Uber Mike in St. Pete, Florida. It's not an event. There's no schedule. There's no plan. I'm going to arrive at 10 and I'm going to skate. That's it. That's all that's happening. Oh, and Phil will be there and he'll play guitar or sing or maybe both. And then our crew will be there. I don't know exactly who's coming from here, and we'll hang out and have a good time, and it'll be fun. There you go. I think we'll have some bladers, some scooters, some skateboarders. It'll be fun. Nathan C says, let's not forget that Trump knew he didn't call for an insurrection that they are accused of following, yet he did nothing to pardon the political prisoners who were wrongfully accused. He set them up.
Just because Trump didn't try to commit an insurrection doesn't make Trump good. I mean,
well, he should have pardoned people.
Yeah.
He should have got these people who've been locked up for like 2 years without charge.
But they neutered him right after the 6th. They used the 6th to absolutely neuter him. I mean, after that, there was no Trump left afterwards.
Yeah. There's no Trump left even right now.
Yeah, I mean, right now it's actually kind of pathetic. Great NFTs, though. Great NFTs. Yeah, doing
That's
a really
true.
good job.
That's true.
It made a lot of money.
Some say the best NFTs.
Mike Hillier says, Tim, your review of Genderqueer is similar to where toxic masculinity came from. The one that came up with it was a closeted trans woman. Interesting. Toxic masculinity.
That's a book.
I have no idea. Let's see. Becoming ungovernable says, pissing outside is one of the finest feelings in the world. What's wrong with emptying your bladder how God intended? What I'm basically saying is you have this little kid who's smelling like feces, peeing in the yard, can't read, and has dried crusted blood stuck in her pants.
Yeah.
All of those things together say severe neglect and child abuse.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want. It's a girl too. You know.
Yeah. I was going to say,
different than a
peeing
boy.
outside as a man, that's nice. But peeing outside as a woman, or let alone a little girl over and over again, there's something wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's crazy. She couldn't read until she was 12. Like right there, it's like, were her parents on drugs? Seriously,
For sure.
Yeah,
I bet
probably.
They, why move out to the middle of nowhere and then
Couple of
neglect your
hippies
kids?
just neglecting their kid.
Yep, ignoring the kid. It's like you ever see Matilda? The parents
Yeah.
just like we didn't want it. It's in the room. You know,
Yeah.
that's a sad story, man.
It's different if you have the ability to go pee outside versus,
Yep. Being forced to.
Right.
Just the idea that the counselor was like, "You smell really bad," and people are complaining,
so
and she's
crazy.
like, "I'm all embarrassed now." It's like, did your mom not tell you smell bad?
Right.
Did you not have any family members to be like, "Hey, you need to clean yourself"?
Yeah.
Nope.
They probably
She was
smoked.
just scuzzy and messed up and couldn't read. Like that's a developmental well, it's not development. It's what would you call that? I mean, the average kid learns to read at 6 years old.
Yep.
She was twice the age of the average person who learns to read, and she couldn't read. What were her parents doing to her?
Well, I'm surprised that, I mean, I don't know how long she went to public school or anything prior to that, but I'm surprised someone hadn't stepped in earlier than that. I mean, all the signs of abuse were there.
Yeah.
But it just
I mean, when the
continued to
counselor
happen.
realized she was
Yeah.
smelling like crap, should have been like, "Is everything okay at home?"
I mean, not being able to read, I mean, up until the point of where you're 12.
She's in
That should have
school.
been a big sign, especially in school. Like, yeah, and I remember in class, you'd
Wow.
have the teacher would call on that kid, and then they'd be terrible at reading, right? But there's a big difference from being terrible at reading and having a low efficiency score to literally not being able to read.
Well,
at
I'm
all.
not surprised the schools didn't do anything. I don't think the schools work. But imagine a 12-year-old kid who smells like crap with crusted blood in their pants, who can't read and is peeing in the yard, is at school. You're going to be like, something's wrong with this kid.
Yeah.
Like, where was Child Protective Services?
Is everything okay? Do you want a gender reassignment surgery?
They didn't do it like that, but like, you get this person who's just so dejected and angry at everybody. Who they're it's like, imagine walking into a room and no matter what you say, you're wrong, and you feel bad, and everyone's laughing at you, and then all of a sudden someone comes up to you and says, "I think you're right."
You're valid.
Yep. All of a sudden you feel good. All right, let's grab some more super chats. Where are we at? Let's see. Someone else mentioned the 21-year-old Air Force cadet who dropped. Wow. What is this one? Jojo AZ says, salute to Gunners Collective on YouTube. Not familiar. Very cool.
Never heard of.
Mr. Grizzly Bear says, hey, Luke, what is your opinion on the show Parks and Rec?
I watched it a few years ago. I enjoyed it. Ron Swanson's an awesome actor,
A communist.
and yeah, he's like a self-hating communist. It's awesome to see his
In real
kind
life,
of-
he's an actual communist.
Yes, he is. He's a horrible but yeah, I'm not even going to get into it. But the actor he plays is somewhat of a pioneer.
I thought it's what's his name's best work. what is his name? Guardians of the Galaxy.
He's Ron Swanson.
No, the other guy. Guardians
Pratt.
Yeah,
Chris
Pratt.
It's kind of a joke.
He's good at that. Yeah.
Dude, he's so good.
Kim McCursey says, Tim, you spoke earlier about your separation from sugar. My son works nights and he doesn't feel right until 12 a.m. Asked him how long, by the way, 12 a.m. in his last soda. He said that's an excellent question. Interesting.
Yeah.
Benjamin RC says, I lost 110 pounds and kicked diabetes in 2022 by eating right.
Hell yes, dude.
Epic.
Hell yeah, man.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
But there's a common misconception that you can't really get rid of diabetes either. But I know multiple people.
It depends on the
that-
type.
Yeah, it depends on the type,
Yeah.
of course. But I know multiple people that have literally conquered it, and then now they look absolutely amazing.
Type 2 diabetes for sure. There's even evidence that people with type 1 diabetes can keep
There's some cases,
symptoms
yeah.
under control with diet.
Yeah, one is like your pancreas is just done,
Yep.
and one is it's overloading and can't handle
Correct.
your horrible eating.
Correct.
Yeah. David Neves says, working in the ER the last 11 years, the patients are getting younger and sicker. Nurses have less skills. Hard keeping up with sick, unhealthy people. Interesting.
Sketchy, man.
Shane Mann says, last night you mentioned waking up during surgery. I did that when I was 5. They were working on my heart. I rose up, saw all red in my chest, pushed back down, and they hit the sauce. I was out in 10 to 15 seconds. Yikes, man.
That's a memory.
Yeah. Oof. Corn Pop says, abolish the Parks Department.
Thank you.
But who will run the parks?
Nobody.
Nature.
Grandpa's
As intended.
Grandpa's Place says, last time I was on a skateboard, Sid Vicious was alive and part of the Sex Pistols. Tim, there will be a time when skateboarding is something you can no longer do. I disagree. I've seen those videos of like 70-year-old dudes riding around on skateboards.
Then you just got to skate on Mars. Less gravity.
That's right.
You're going to fly.
Yep. And
I'm
besides,
just waiting for them to fill skate parks with sand again.
Oh, yeah. That was
Oh, man.
That was very effective.
Liam Black says, hey guys, started listening because of Phil. Still don't quite understand all the topics you cover here, but I'm learning so much. Cheers, all.
Hi,
Look at
Liam.
that. Phil's introducing people into the world of politics. Very good.
How much did you pay her to say that?
I didn't pay him anything.
Become the Automator says, love the show. I'm starting a supply chain and automation course tomorrow night. Learn how to automate your jobs instead of being automated. Very, very cool. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the show with your friends, become a member at timcast.com. Go to timcast.com, click join us. We're going to have a members-only uncensored show coming up for you in about 1 hour. We have a huge library of this content that you can browse through from, going back several years. And with your support, we're going to be setting up coffee shops, physical locations, creating new shows, creating music, starting skate companies, and really going after the culture war. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Tayler, do you want to shout anything out?
Tayler USA on Twitter. That's where you guys can find me. It's where I do most of my work. It is at Tayler USA, not OR. It's spelled the right way, but Tayler USA. And thanks for having me on, Tim.
Right on.
I am Phil That Remains on Twitter. You can check out the band All That Remains all over the internet and get used to my face. I'm going to be around here.
We got him.
Well, thank you guys for coming. This was a great sausage fest. And, I might be leaving, but my YouTube channel is not. And it is youtube.com/wearechange. I did a video today about the World Economic Forum and Davos agenda being leaked. I did a very interesting video on that. Check it out right now on youtube.com/wearechange.
Polish sausage.
Whatever you're
Protect
into.
And patrol your chakras. Take care of yourself and your vibration.
If we combine all of the chakra things, can we summon Captain Planet?
Yeah. You got to get all 8 of them on you at the same time with 8 different
That was
people.
UN propaganda.
Okay, so this is the butt one.
Yeah, you got the butt one, so you got to put it in your butt.
Oh, it goes
You
right
got to put it in your gooch. I'm serious. That's the good one. If you don't put it in your gooch, you're not doing
All right,
it right.
everybody,
I got the heart right.
Put up to the
Can we get a
microphone.
wide
I got the
shot?
heart.
Does it exist?
You got to bend over.
These are Ian's stupid, weird hippie things.
My mom got these for me for Christmas. Shout out to Becky Crossland. What's up, dude?
Shouts out, Becky.
Thanks, Becky. It's a hit.
What is the I feel supposed to do?
I feel. I don't know. It says on there with a number, and whatever number it is what
Let me see
chakra.
what you got.
The
You
bottom
got-
chakra is 1 up to 7.
You got the sacral.
The sacrum is, what is that?
Wiener.
Right here?
That's your wiener.
Oh, okay. That's why it's shaped like that. Here.
Yeah.
You gotta put it on your wiener.
The sacrum is right above
The wiener.
the wiener. Right?
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the root is right under the wiener.
Yeah, and Tim has the root. He has the butt one.
Yeah, that one
Oh,
goes
boy.
right up, right between your legs, just straight up.
Phil, which one do you
Life-changing.
have?
After
Do
the
it.
show.
Throw one.
You got to
Oh,
get
do
a
you
war
really?
cry now.
Do you really have to throw one?
I do, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Did you put it right on?
got to do the war cry.
Did you put it right on the Adam's apple?
I have, yeah.
War cry, Phil. War cry.
Oh, try. Hold on. Let's see if we can do this.
You can pull your Adam's apple down a little bit, and it like drains fluid out of your head. Get yourself some vibrating chakra tuning forks if you want to. They're on Amazon and elsewhere, I'm sure. Serge, what's happening, brother?
Yo, what an interesting episode. Yeah, I'll be in the chat. I'll be in the comments, rather not the chat. I read the chat all the time, but I'll see in the comments. Probably have a lot to say. We're going to enjoy the tuning forks in the next episode,
That's
I'm
right.
sure.
All right, everybody. We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Cheers.